Start Network is here.
Oh, no punches!
I'm real revolutionary right now.
Support this man, Black Media. He makes sure that our stories are told.
Thank you for being the voice of Black America, Roland.
Stay black. I love y'all.
All momentum we have now, we have to keep this going.
The video looks phenomenal.
See, there's a difference between Black Star Network and Black-owned media and something like CNN.
You can't be Black-owned media and be scared.
It's time to be smart.
Bring your eyeballs home.
You dig?
Today is Tuesday, April 19, 2022. Coming up on Roland Martin Unfiltered, streaming live on the Black Star Network. Breaking news: a white man has pled guilty to making threats against Minnesota Congresswoman Ilhan Omar. I'll give you the details in the latest victory for the Department of Justice Civil Rights Division. He felt the cold, hard steel against his head. He heard the gunshot. He died as soon as the bullet entered his brain. That's what the doctors who performed an independent autopsy on Congolese refugee Patrick Lyoya have concluded. We'll give you more of those details. Also, the Chicago officer who killed Laquan McDonald will not face any federal civil rights charges. A Tennessee mayor has proclaimed April as Confederate History Month. All right, that's not major news, except the mayor is black. A former Ohio police chief pleads guilty to machine gun trafficking. Yeah. Fun to police, huh? And in today's Marketplace segment, we'll meet two Oakland, California women who decided to create a business helping others to stay in business during the pandemic. Folks, it's time to bring the funk on Roland Martin Unfiltered, the Black Star Network. Let's go.
He's got it. Whatever the biz, he's on it. Whatever it is, he's got the scoop, the fact, the find. And when it breaks, he's right on time and it's rolling. Best believe he's knowing. Putting it down from sports to news to politics. With entertainment just for kicks, he's rolling. It's on go, y'all. It's Roland Martin, yeah. Rolling with Roland now. He's funk, he's fresh, he's real, the best, you know he's Roland Martin now.
Folks, white racists continue to make attacks against black members of Congress. Well, those racists also will find themselves in trouble. The Department of Justice announced today that a white Florida man, he has pled guilty to making threats against Minnesota Congresswoman Ilhan Omar. Of course, she, has engendered a lot of controversy, if you will, in Congress, and she has really ticked off many of these white racists who out here who have been dissing her. They have been dissing the same to Congresswoman Maxine Waters and others. And so understand, when you make a threat against a member of Congress, you are committing a federal crime. Well, this Florida man, he has pled guilty to charges of hate-motivated threats against a member of Congress. On April 19th, and I'm reading the press release from the DOJ. On April 19th, David Hannon, age 67, of Sarasota, entered a guilty plea before U.S. Magistrate Judge Christopher Tuitt to an information charging him with one count of threatening a federal official. According to information presented at the guilty plea, it was on July 16, 2019, while in Sarasota, that Hannon sent an email to Congresswoman Ilhan Omar threatening to kill her. Yeah, sent an email, okay? He sent the email following a televised press conference held by Representative Omar and 3 other U.S. Congresswomen. In his threatening email, which had a subject line that read, "You're dead, you radical Muslim," Hannon referred to Congresswoman Omar and the other Congresswomen of color as, quote, "radical rats," and asked Congresswoman Omar if she was prepared to die for Islam. Literally, that's what he actually wrote. Is she prepared to die for Islam? Folks, it is, you know, when you look at these attacks, when you look at these emails, when you look at what is being sent to these members of Congress, you know, understand that these things are happening on a consistent basis. And unfortunately, this is what they have to deal with on a regular basis. Not only that, he also said, the email further stated that Hannon was going to shoot the Congresswoman in the head. This is a quote from Christian Clark, who is the Assistant Attorney General for Civil Rights Division. "Threatening to kill our elected officials, especially because of their race, ethnicity, or religious beliefs, is offensive to our nation's fundamental values. The Justice Department will not hesitate to prosecute individuals who violate federal laws that prohibit violent, hate-motivated threats. All elected officials, regardless of their background, should be able to represent their communities and serve the public free from hate-motivated threats and violence." That, of course, again, a Florida man, 67 years old, pleads guilty to threatening a member of Congress. I want to pull up my panel right now to discuss this further, because we see these things happening all too often. Joining us right now is Teresa Lundy, of course, principal founder of TML Communications, Dr. Mustafa Santiago Ali, formerly with the EPA. Glad to have both of you here. Teresa, you know, when we talk about these threats, I mean, this is something that is consistent. Congresswoman Maxine Waters talked about on January 6th how she absolutely believed that had she been attacked in the halls of Congress, that she would have been killed by those white domestic terrorists on that particular day. There have been other individuals who have pled guilty to making threatening comments against her and others. And she has made it clear she will not tolerate it as well. This is what our folks are dealing with, especially the black members of Congress.
Yeah, and it's so unfortunate because, you know, African American and the brown members of Congress, they are there to serve the underrepresented minority population. And so for them to be, you know, ridiculed and unfortunately threatened and harassed because of what their preferences is or what their religious beliefs is, it's intolerable. You know, we live in a country where it's supposed to be the land of the free, home of the brave. And then when we have courageous leaders that is supposed to stand up for black and brown communities, what we see is another side of America, the racist side, the hateful side, come and try to take down our black and brown women. But again, these women who got into congressional leadership are not weak women. These women have a strong track record of going against the odds and making sure that their voice is not only heard, but understanding that they also have a backing that is also countering that. But again, we just have to make sure that we also are upholding these women that are in public office, but making an example of those who want to come against them.
And these threats are real, Mustafa. When folks say we're going to kill you, keep in mind it was former Congresswoman Gabby Giffords who was shot in the head by an individual at a grocery store in Arizona. She survived, but she still has been greatly impacted and has not fully recovered from those gunshot wounds.
You have to take it serious. You know, sometimes folks will think, oh, well, this is just somebody who's just spouting off rhetoric. You know, we've seen, as you just mentioned, both she and others who've had to deal with these types of situations. I've worked on Capitol Hill. I've worked for federal agencies. And I know that there are those individuals out there who, one, want to try and scare people, then there are others who take it to another level. The reality of this situation is that when you threaten a government employee, when you threaten a member of Congress, you are dealing with at least a Class C or D felony, which carries between 5 and 10 years. So that's the minimum. But I'm sure folks are looking at other charges also to bring forward. So one, we have to take it serious. But two, we've got to make sure that we prosecute folks to the full letter of the law to make sure that they're sending a clear message to others that this type of behavior will not be tolerated.
Indeed, and like I said, it was Giffords who was shot. 18 others were also shot as well, and so certainly great work there by the Civil Rights Division of the Department of Justice. All right, let's talk about Grand Rapids, Michigan. The family of a Congolese refugee killed by a Grand Rapids, Michigan police officer, they released the results of an independent autopsy today. 26-year-old Patrick Lyoya died during what should have been a routine traffic stop on April 4th. The encounter turned physical, leaving Patrick with a fatal gunshot wound to the head. Well, today, family attorney Ben Crump called his death an execution.
But we want to start off with updates. We told the Lyoya family that we would be intentional and very intense in investigating every aspect of how this Grand Rapids police officer escalated a simple misdemeanor traffic stop into a deadly execution with him shooting an unarmed civilian in the back of his head.
Made a hole in the back with a drill. I made a hole in the back of the head and showed the put a probe into the hole and guided the probe from the back here, where you can see the probe going into the back of the head and out in the right side, up a little higher than the entrance wound. And at that point, there is another hole that I made because the bullet went through the bone and lodged under the skin. And it lodged under the skin for the simple reason that the skin is elastic, stretched, lost its the velocity of the bullet, because the bullet stretched the skin in the temple area, in the upper temple area, and at that moment the bullet stopped and it was located in that location. So there was no complete exit. There was only an exit from the skull, but not an exit from the head. And that was that bullet was in a shape that, well, when I did the autopsy, the findings were, as I stated, the bullet had been removed, but the small fragment of bone from the area were available and showed me what actually had happened.
The officer who shot Patrick remains unidentified, but he is on paid leave. The Grand Rapids police chief said the officer will not be named unless he is charged. You know, Mustafa, it boggles my mind that first, this is a police officer who is being paid by taxpayers. And this idea that you can't name the officer, so we can name the person who's dead. We can name the person who was shot by the officer. But we can't name the officer?
It's nonsensical. I mean, if you, myself, anyone else that we know, was a part of somebody losing their life, of course our names would be shared with folks, just like the police officer's name should be shared. We know Patrick's name. We know Patrick's loss, what his family has shared, who he was, what he stood for, all of these important aspects. This person, this officer took his life. So we should know who they are. What's their record? Do they have other types of, assaults or other types of things that are a part of their history? Folks need to know these answers. There should be transparency. And one of the reasons that folks have difficulty in trusting law enforcement is the lack of transparency. And then, of course, we could get to the accountability aspect as well. But right now, we're talking about transparency. There's absolutely no reason why this individual should not be identified. And then we'll let it play out through the courts and through other sets of actions.
It's one of those things that keeps happening, Teresa, where people, have this view that we already know the massive protections that police officers have. But the fact of the matter is, if an officer does something, we as citizens have a right to ask for that officer's name and for their badge number. I'm sorry, you're going to say he's only going to be named if he gets charged?
Yeah, it's almost like, the officers are held at a higher standard where, they feel personally attacked or harassed by citizens who are tax-paying citizens who are paying these police departments to do their jobs. But we're not really taking into consideration or in account the amount of worry that the family and the public has to go through. So what, the officer is being harassed? So what, they may get a few calls. Let's think about the family individual whose life has been lost because of this incident, because of the misguided practices that has been going on for centuries against Black and brown people. But we have to keep, when we talk about, funding or defunding or redirecting funds from the police department, those are some of the acts that we need to talk about. Transparency in every investigation. We shouldn't have to outsource a special investigation or an independent report in order to get some answers, or we have to wait until an officer is charged. I think it's unconstitutional, and I think it's not feasible to the rights of everyday taxpaying citizens.
Mario, DeMario Solomon Simmons Jones is, of course, attorney out of Tulsa, Oklahoma. DeMario, we see this happen in numerous cases as well, where there's attitude that police get the benefit of the doubt. And here's this case: this 26-year-old man is dead, shot in the back of the head by the police officer. We've actually seen the video as well. But this notion that you don't have to name him. To me, it's silly.
Well, it's silly and it's illegal, because anything public dollars, any public expenditures or public employment should be public. We should know who these people are. This is no different than these other countries that we call states sponsors of terror, or other things that the United States like to call other countries, where the policemen run around with masks on their face. It's the same deal. This police chief is keeping this officer masked up. This officer that we saw shoot this young man in the back of the head, execution style. It is outrageous. It is ridiculous. In this country, they have set police officers up as a special class. They get special protections. They get special laws. And listen, here's a little known fact. Being a police officer is not a top 20 dangerous job. They want to make it seem like being a police officer is one of the most dangerous jobs you can have. That's not true. This is a ridiculous, outrageous that this young man can be killed in this fashion on video, and this officer can just we don't even know who this guy is. I'll give you an example also. I represent 7 African-American women that were raped by a white officer named Daniel Holtzclaw here in Oklahoma City. He was convicted, given 263 years in prison. Oklahoma law requires that victims know where their victimizers are in prison. They refuse to let us know where he's actually in prison. So that's the type of special treatment they get to officers.
Even to this day?
Even to this very day. In fact, when we deposed him, the state of Oklahoma, we had to pay $2,200 for him to be transported from wherever he was, brought down to the facility. We were put in a prison. This guy is a convicted serial rapist. He was not shackled. He was not in chains. They bought him McDonald's while we sat there and had to pay for the opportunity to talk to him or depose him. That's the type of special privileges that the police officers in this country continue to receive because this system is set up to degrade, to demean, and to destroy black communities, period.
And that is certainly just utterly nonsensical, but we see it happening all the time. All right, folks, got to go to a break. We come back, more on Roland Martin Unfiltered, including the former cop who killed Laquan McDonald will not be facing federal charges. We'll tell you about that. Folks, don't forget to join our Bring the Fuck fan club. Also, download the Black Star Network app. Download it on every available platform. Our goal is to get 50,000 of our downloads by May 1st. Apple phone, Android phone, Apple TV, Android TV, Roku, Amazon Fire TV, Xbox One, Samsung Smart TV. You also can join our Bring the Funk fan club. Every dollar you give goes to support this show. And of course, P.O. Box 57196, Washington, D.C. 20037. That's 0196. Cash App is $RM Unfiltered. PayPal is paypal.me/R Martin Unfiltered. Venmo is RM Unfiltered. Zelle is Roland@RolandSMartin.com. Roland@RolandMartinUnfiltered.com. Some of the comments from folks, let's see here. From Lillian, I vote, it doesn't matter. Look at Judge K.B. Jackson. Holla. Of course, on the back of her quote was a card from Eleanor Roosevelt. True patriotism springs from a belief in the dignity of the individual, freedom and equality, not only for Americans, but for all people on earth. Lillian, we certainly appreciate you supporting the show here. Let's see here. Hi, Roland. I watch your show every day. I love what you do for us. The crafty counselors will not get our money this time. I'm glad to send mail. I sent money before. And then shout out to Karen Hunter, also Dr. Greg Carr. I love him and thank him for the free classes. I've learned so much in the past 2 years. Shout out to Reese and Dr. Malvo and all your guests. I'm going, oh my Lord. She said, I'm gonna get an AK-47 and a 9mm, 2 guns. I guess she getting ready. Love you, and send her a check this time. Matter of fact, she even sent a photo as well. And so I appreciate. Oh, Greg, now remember, y'all, we had a brother who was flirting with Erica. Y'all can zoom in to Dr. Carr in class at Black Table. I'm flirting, love you. Dr. Karen Hunter, blessings to you. So, Greg, you have an admirer here, Greg. So I guess she joins the brother, the pastor, who loved him some Erica. And so I will make sure Dr. Carr gets this photo. Let's see here. I'm going to read one more. This is from Shirley Davis. Roland, my mom, Jewel Lean Caraway, 87 years old, watched you for years. She loves your truth-telling and our stories. She asked me to donate. Cheryl, I appreciate that. Let me see. I'll actually do one more. See, we got a card here. Thank you. Just a note to say thank you. I've learned so much just by watching your show. I love all of the guests, especially Reese. I will vote in the next election because now I'm registered. Trisha, I appreciate it. Way to go. Folks, I'll be right back on Roland Martin Unfiltered.
I'm Dr. Jackie, and on A Balanced Life, it takes a village to raise a child, and truer words have never been spoken. If you're raising a child, you know that it's a blessed challenge like no other. Even more so if your child has a disability. We'll talk to parents and our expert panelists about the best way forward for your child to help you maintain your own sanity on A Balanced Life with Dr. Jackie on Black Star Network.
Pull up a chair, take your seat. The Black Table with me, Dr. Greg Carr, here on the Black Star Network. Every week, we'll take a deeper dive into the world we're living in. Join the conversation only on the Black Star Network.
Hey, I'm Arnaz J. Black TV does matter, dang it.
Hey, what's up, y'all? It's your boy Jacob Lattimore, and you're now watching Roland Martin right now.
Stay woke.
All right, the Department of Justice will not file federal civil rights charges against the former police officer convicted in the 2014 killing of Laquan McDonald. The U.S. Attorney's Office at the Northern District of Illinois said, quote, federal prosecutors would need to prove to a jury beyond a reasonable doubt that Mr. Van Dyke willfully deprived Mr. McDonald of a constitutional right. To do that, prosecutors would have to prove not only that Mr. Van Dyke acted with the deliberate and specific intent to do something the law forbids, but also that his actions were not the result of mistake, fear, negligence, or bad judgment. It requires federal prosecutors to prove beyond a reasonable doubt and Mr. Van Dyke was what he was thinking when he used deadly force, and that he knew such force was excessive. The federal law presents a very high bar, more stringent than the state charges on which Mr. Van Dyke was convicted. Of course, Jason Van Dyke served 3 of his 6-year sentence. He was convicted in 2019 of second-degree murder and aggravated battery in the death of Laquan McDonald. I'll start with you, DeMario. Former Attorney General Eric Holder often complained about this high threshold that federal prosecutors have to meet. Congresswoman Sheila Jackson Lee, who sits on the House Judiciary Committee, she has often said that federal prosecutors are being too timid, that frankly they need to be more aggressive. And she, as she said, stop being scared to lose. She said, as opposed to saying, oh, we can't meet this, she says, why don't you at least try the case? Other people say the exact same thing. Do you believe that the Department of Justice is being too timid, or the U.S. Attorney's Office is being too timid when it comes to prosecuting these cops for violating the civil rights of individuals who they shoot and kill?
Absolutely, the Department of Justice is being too timid because they show us so many times each and every day that Black lives do not matter in the United States of America. They refuse to utilize the tools that are available to show people that if you do this act, we're going to prosecute you. Listen, every case in America, every prosecutor, when they take a case to trial, they have to prove beyond a reasonable doubt. That is the absolutely standard, right? And so they only want to bring cases that they believe that they can win 100%. Well, guess who's on the receiving end of most of those cases? People, Black people that look like you and I and the rest of the panelists tonight. The reality is these laws are set in place for prosecutors to do their job, prosecute these individuals, and try to get convictions. Even if an individual is not convicted, it means a lot to have to spend resources, time, energy, and have the stress of being prosecuted like the criminal that this particular individual is, who shot and killed Laquan McDonald, shot him from across the street. He was a far distance away. I think he shot him 16 times. It was clearly a crime. And if our federal government will not use the tools to protect us, we are in serious, serious trouble.
You know, Teresa, I hear people say, well, just try. I mean, just try. Don't just say, well, we don't think it's going to happen. If you don't try, you don't know.
Yeah, but we're dealing with leadership who doesn't try. We're dealing with leadership who chooses to choose the path of non-public opinion, where they don't or are not being as courageous as we want them to in trying a case. Like, we are unfortunately finding ourselves with leadership who doesn't want to take that chance than they would have, some years ago. And so we're in this space of, leadership that is saying, we're not going to do this because if and or what, versus the public opinion, which is saying, if you did try, let's see the results. And so we now have, Brother Laquan is now laying by the wayside because no one's trying, and how is that getting justice? How is that renewable or opportunity for the family to see justice under law? We're not going to see anything because no one's trying.
Mustafa.
Every landmark case throughout history had a high bar, but we had attorneys that were willing to step up and to push, whether those attorneys were in the government or they were in outside practice. So for folks to say it's just too tough, or we don't think that we can meet the high bar, that's just a cop-out. In my time in federal government, I used to have conversations with offices of general counsel in a number of agencies and departments who often would not take the tough cases because they were afraid that they might lose. Now, by no means was that everyone, but there were far too many. So the question becomes, do we have the right set of attorneys who are representing us at the Department of Justice, at EPA, at HUD, transportation, so forth and so on? Because if you're not willing to do what's necessary, what the people are asking you for, and those who are paying your salary, then maybe you should find something else to do.
Well,
Brother, can I say one other
Yeah, go ahead.
I've been involved in these cases personally, just the last one with the Terrence Crutcher case. A lot of people don't realize that these decisions come from main justice. They're not done from the individual U.S. attorney office in that particular state. These decisions to make these type of civil rights claims, civil rights cases, go through D.C. And so when Teresa talked about leadership, that's what we need. We need leadership from the top down that says, we're going to do this. Even Eric Holder, he was the attorney general. He could have said, look, we're going to prosecute these cases, win, lose, or draw. They make the decision.
Well, and when you talk about that, even when you think about the case of New York with Eric Garner, that I don't even know if they even actually make that decision. Let me see. Did they ever make a decision on that?
I think it took them like 6 years to decide that they were not going to prosecute. And so, it's not just the Biden administration. It's not just the Bush administration. It's not just the Obama administration. It has been every administration in this country has refused to utilize the tools and the laws that are on the books right now. That's why when everybody was so excited about the Emmett Till Act, that was fine. But let's just utilize the laws on the books right now. Prosecute those particular laws. Hold people accountable, just like we were talking about with the brother that was shot in the back of the head. Hold people accountable with the laws that are on the books right now, and stop giving us symbolism and putting up new shiny balls when you won't do what's available right now.
It was 5 years. I'm trying to understand, how the hell does it take 5 years to decide to file federal charges against the cop? 5 years? I mean,
under the Obama administration.
This is the New York Times story right here. Eric Garner's death will not lead to federal charges for NYPD officer. The decision was made by Attorney General William Barr in 2019, but the death happened in 2014.
Right.
I don't, Mustafa, I don't get that. 5 years? I mean, it takes you 5 years to review evidence?
Well, I don't want to get in the head of the legal team at that time, but I will say that I have seen instances where folks will let the clock run out and push it to the next administration. I'm not sure if that's what played out in this instance, but I know that sometimes does.
Well, this came, Teresa, right before it expired. So it was, literally, that took all that time. But, again, Eric Garner was killed on July 17th, 2014. Obama doesn't leave the White House until January 2017. So the Obama Justice Department had 2.5 years to investigate this case. You trying to tell me it takes 2.5 years and you punt to the next administration and then they take 2.5 years?
No, what we're seeing here is the pass through and pass along. Well, what we know is at the top priority. Unfortunately, Eric Garner was not at the top priority. So this is what happens. It goes to administration, and unfortunately, if the family and the advocates and those that are working on the case is not saying, hey, we want justice in this case, let's review the case, and the public outcry isn't as fast. Listen, we have seen cases being reviewed in a blink of an eye, right, from the Justice Department. We have seen, even in Trump's administration, verdicts overturned and people getting out of prison, who's supposed to be in prison, who's been overturned so quickly. So we know what the capabilities of the Justice Department can do, but again, it's about the priorities. And when we go back and not forget about our elected officials and our leadership, when they are asking for our vote, when they are asking for us to believe in them, they're asking for hope, they're asking for change, they're asking for everything, right? But we need to tell them it's time to remember the cases that went viral. It's time to remember the families that are heartbroken. And so once we continue this, unfortunately, that we still got to, keep reminding people, hey, this happened, we need some results. But it is what it is, unfortunately. And, this is our America right now. I don't know what to say more about it, but I know that it doesn't take 2.5 years. The power of the Justice Department here in America, we can get things done. It just has to be prioritized in the best way.
Indeed. And when you talk about leadership, here's a perfect example of that. New York City is taking a stand against a major banking institution, Wells Fargo. The mayor of New York, Eric Adams, says city government will not open any new bank accounts with Wells Fargo and Company due to the bank's, quote, persisting track record of discrimination. The banking giant has been embroiled in many discrimination lawsuits, the most recent one in February for discriminatory lending practices. Of course, we also know that it was during the housing crisis where it was exposed even further, the roles that Wells Fargo played when it came to home ownership. One of the things that they have done is try to sponsor a lot of different black events with black organizations. But one of the things that I said is, well, how about you return the money to the people who lost their homes? That to me, that's really what should also be done. This decision here, I think, is a significant one. And in fact, you had a response. So here's the deal here. It was first of all, Bloomberg did their own investigation where they found that Wells Fargo had approved black homeowners seeking to refinance their mortgages during the pandemic at a much lower rate than whites. Now, the CEO of Wells Fargo, Charlie Scharf, said that, well, first of all, the letter was sent to Wells Fargo CEO by the New York Comptroller Brad Lander and the mayor. They said the decision was due to the checkered history of Wells Fargo's mortgage business going back to the 2018 financial crisis when the bank and others were accused. Now, he lays out the persistent discrimination. And so this is the Bloomberg story, DeMario. This is from Yahoo News. The proof of the problem at Wells Fargo is in the numbers. Wells Fargo approved just 47% of black homeowners who completed applications to refinance mortgages in 2020, compared with 72% of whites. Now, although its approval rate for black applicants increased to 58%, the number for whites is 79%, DeMario.
Rhoda, man, this is why I mess with you. But like you stated, don't be trying to give us sponsorships and put your name on our events and try to whitewash your sins against our people when you're not going to actually do what it takes to restore us back to what you took and stole from us. This is what's most important about this story. The fact that this mayor and this city government utilized the tools that they had at their disposal to protect black people. They punished this particular Wells Fargo, this discriminatory, racist organization that has shown time and time again, the numbers are right there. You just showed the audience. We're not going to allow you to continue to make money until you fix this problem. That's all we're asking for our elected leaders in this country. as Teresa says, come to us and give us hope and change. No, give us accountability. Make our lives better. Make sure those who are preying on us stop doing it. And for Black organizations, stop taking this money for these type of corporations, whitewashing it, making them look good when in fact their policies and practices are continuing to be discriminatory and destructive to our people.
And again, this is, I'm sorry, this has to be said. And there are a number of organizations. I mean, look, it's a perfect example, and the NAACP has to answer for this. Okay, they have to answer for this. This was just 2 years ago, where Wells Fargo announced they were making an investment in African American community-based banks. NAACP sent this release out. And then says today Wells Fargo announced an additional $50 million investment in programs supporting economic growth in African American communities across the country. The NAACP applauds this investment and its prospect to build Black financial power. Okay, so here's a perfect example. The quote says, African Americans have disproportionately been denied access to financial resources that can lead to wealth building and economic independence. In partnership with organizations and companies such as Wells Fargo, NAACP encourages initiatives centered on economic inclusion and financial participation of the Black community. I get it, $50 million. But how much in Black wealth was lost during the home foreclosure crisis?
There you go.
Billions.
That's the real issue, Teresa. How much money was lost?
Well over 50 million. So it's interesting. What I've seen, since that press release actually went out, I mean, even if we look at the last 2 years, we've been seeing an uptick in two things. I'm going to just say personally what I've seen. Hopefully everybody else has seen it as well. Wells Fargo has been making a very intentional sponsorship buy to organization and nonprofit organizations. Well done. They've also been hiring more Black and brown people in their front office. Not sure if they're in the back, but they're definitely tellers, right? They're branch managers, they're associates. That's also awesome, right? But when it comes to, and again, that goes back to the numbers, which we're talking about right now, the numbers have been on the decline for more refinancing options. And why is that happening? The reason why it's happening is because the market has increased during the pandemic. Those who are looking for home ownership, if you were looking for a house in 2020, and then you're like, hey, I'm done living in this area, I'm actually going to the suburbs, what you will find is that your house has more than 20% of an increase. I know that's true because I was personally looking for a home during the pandemic to be a homeowner. And when I tell you the rates that I was seeing and the even the showings, even down to the showings, that's a whole nother story, right? If you have a Black real estate person, showing you homes and you can't get in the door, but if you reach out to somebody else who's not Black or brown, bet you get in 20 minutes. So that's a whole nother story. But I think when we start looking at some of the refinance, let me go back to the topic, right? Refinancing applications, you start to see the denial and the additional paperwork that is needed. Instead of 2 years, you're now asking, 3 to 4, right? And then it's long wait times, which means you probably missed your opportunity on getting that property. So we have to do more. Wells Fargo needs to do more. It's not even a we at this point. Corporations and banking institutions have to do more if they say they want to do more to getting us into these properties. But again, we can't just keep co-signing on these press releases, right? We have to follow up. Institutions that have power need to follow up and make sure that change is happening. If not, then we have to stop giving quotes. We have to stop signing off, because once we get the quotes and we stop signing off, the people is at risk. So we have to follow up and make sure these assessment points are ready. Because again, look, I'm part of the denial, right? But there were some other factors. I'm like, well, I just got approved over here. Why am I getting approved over here? So yeah, This story is definitely hitting home. It's hitting the next generation. As we talk about generational wealth, this is something that we have to make sure that is in our best interest moving forward.
See, the thing for me here, Mustafa, that bothers me as I look at this. So let me just show y'all this timeline. So this is the Bloomberg story from Bloomberg.com. Bloomberg says nationwide, 47% of black homeowners who completed a refinance application with Wells Fargo in 2020 were approved, compared with 72% of white homeowners. This is, again, happening in 2020. This is March of 2020, where the NAACP commends Wells Fargo's investment in African-American community-based banks. This is 2010, where the NAACP sued Wells Fargo, but dropped the lawsuit, and it says Wells Fargo and the NAACP have agreed to work together on ways to improve fair credit access, home ownership, and financial literacy for communities of color and other historically disadvantaged communities, the two said in the joint statement. Okay, got it. That's the settlement. So this is 2010 right here. This is 2022 based upon data happening in 2020. So Wells Fargo enters into this agreement to drop a lawsuit with the NAACP. They fund the Image Awards and some other stuff, but they're impacted. And this is the lead of the Bloomberg story. When Maïs Ricard III paid a $560.43 application fee to Wells Fargo and Company on Valentine's Day in 2020 to refinance his mortgage on a 4-bedroom brick colonial in a leafy suburb of Atlanta, he had every reason to expect an easy ride. The Microsoft Corporation engineer is married to a doctor and has a credit score north of 800, putting him in America's credit elite. The loan officer at the bank even told him he was probably eligible for a fast-track appraisal. It didn't take long for problems to appear. Ricard's house, an investment property that was his home before he moved to another Atlanta suburb in 2017, is in a predominantly black neighborhood. And in April, the loan officer emailed to say that, quote, perhaps the area is not eligible for a rapid valuation. By May, she was writing to say the underwriter had more questions. Soon after, Ricard was told he would have to pay a higher 4.5% rate, even though the Federal Reserve has slashed rates to historic lows. Within weeks, Wells Fargo had denied his application. Quote, they kept moving the needle, Ricard says. They didn't want to move forward for whatever reason. Now, Mustafa, the people who are watching, and I'm just going to stand up here because I can't, because this is like really giving me a headache. So for the people who are watching at home, what I need them to understand when y'all hear us talk about this stuff is I need y'all to understand that when they charge black people a higher interest rate, that means that more of our money is being spent on that mortgage, which is putting more money in their pockets, which is keeping that money from African Americans from being invested, and is keeping African Americans from being able to save the money. And so if you want to understand what that impact is, you scroll down further in the Bloomberg story. In the Bloomberg story, they say, if, as expected, the Fed's policy committee moves to hike interest rates at its March meeting, it will begin to closing the door on a remarkable, listen, everybody, it will begin closing the door on a remarkable wealth event that has seen U.S. homeowners refinance almost $5 trillion in mortgages over the past 2 years, the most since the early 2000s. It's one that, listen, folks, it's one that allowed white homeowners to save, listen, to save an estimated $3.8 billion annually by refinancing their mortgages in 2020, according to researchers at the central bank. But it's a door that barely opened for Black Americans, who make up 9% of all homeowners and locked in just $198 million a year, less than 4% of the savings. So now let me go back. I just showed you white homeowners saved an estimated $3.8 billion. Not all of that money was with Wells Fargo. That's the total amount of money. So let me flip over here. March 2020, the NAACP is commending Wells Fargo for an additional $50 million investment in programs supporting economic growth in African American communities. I keep telling y'all and telling y'all and telling y'all, I'm sick of this bullshit of companies putting money in programs to the NAACP, to the National Urban League, to the National Action Network, to Rainbow Push, to anybody else. I'm not singling anybody out. But what I'm tired of are companies sending money, putting money into Black organizations that pales in comparison to the money that they are not actually giving to Black people. So when Mark Morial was on here last year, and I was talking about Pepsi, and with his State of Black America report, by the way, Urban League, y'all don't want to come on my show this year to discuss State of Black America report? Come talk to Black media. I saw the story was given to white media. I'm just saying. So here's my problem. And I said it. And I'm going to say it right now. PepsiCo. PepsiCo has a 5-year, $10 million program with the Urban League to stand up Black businesses. Fine. I support that. Not a problem. Absolutely support it. They were running ads as a part of their initiative to drive $100 million in receipts to Black-owned restaurants over a 5-year period. I support that. So that means there's one program, 5 years, $10 million. That means $2 million a year. This other program is to drive $100 million in receipts to Black-owned restaurants. I talked to one of the Black-owned restaurant owners who's on the advisory committee who says they have no mechanism to even understand if the money, what comes from what PepsiCo is driving. They have no way to track the numbers. Okay, but let's say you did. So that's $100 million over 5 years. That's $20 million a year. Got it? $20 million a year. Okay, so we got the Urban League program over here, $2 million a year. We got this over here, that's $20 million a year. Gotcha. So that's $22 million. Pepsi spends $3 billion a year on advertising. 3. Now, I've heard people say, oh, it's not really, that's not really it. That could be a different number. It's not necessarily $3 billion. Okay, fine. Okay? But I'm going to use $3 billion for this exercise. Okay? I'm going to use $3 billion for this exercise. So if I'm sitting here looking at the calculator, and if I'm looking at how much money is being spent, so what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna sit here and go, okay, I'm looking at $3 billion, okay? $3 billion, cool. So if 5%, if Pepsi spends 5% of its annual marketing budget with black-owned media, just marketing. Y'all, we ain't talking other goods and services. We're not talking black transportation companies. We're not talking black law firms. We're not talking black PR firms. We're not talking black event planning companies. We're not talking any number. We're talking solely black-owned media. If 5% of Pepsi's marketing budget, which right now is probably 0.5 or 1%, if that, went to black-owned media, that means that Pepsi will be spending, I said 5%, y'all, $150 million a year with black-owned media. It ain't hard. $3 billion, 10% of $3 billion is $300 million. Cut that in half, it's $150 million. So that means, I told y'all, the Urban League program, black people are getting $2 million a year. The restaurant program, black people will be getting $20 million a year. If we got 5% of the advertising dollars from PepsiCo, black-owned media companies will be getting $150 million a year. Urban League, 5 years, $10 million. That's 5 years. So that's $10 million. The restaurants over here, $100 billion, 5 years, that's $100 million. So that's $100 million plus $10 million, $110 million. If we got 5% of advertising dollars for 5 years, black-owned media would get $750 million. Which one of those is greater? 110 million or 750 million? So, if you run the numbers that's in the story, if Wells Fargo is denying black people, so if 72% of white homeowners are getting refinanced and 47% of black homeowners are getting refinanced, you got to ask yourself the question, how many, remember I said overall, white folks save $3.8 billion annually. Well, if this is the case, what's annually the millions that black people would save if we were refinanced at 72%? Y'all, that's literally 25% more. I don't know how many homeowners got Wells Fargo mortgages. But let's just say, again, let's say white people were saving $500 million a year, just Wells Fargo. Now we already know numbers are much higher than that, so 3.8 billion annually. But let's just say Wells Fargo alone is 500 million. Okay. So that means that if black people had 20%, we were 25% lower, then that means that that's $125 million. It's $125 million. Now, again, that means that black people, if we were at the rates of white people, we will be saving on an annual basis $125 million more than we're saving right now. How much money did Wells Fargo put in these black banks? 50 million. Is it 50 million every year? So that means that black homeowners, we're losing out on how much money? So, Wells Fargo, I would love to know how much money you give into all these black organizations. for tables and events. How much money are you spending on black advertising? Does it equal the 125 million? Does it exceed it? Please, by all means, share. This is why I keep trying to say on this show, black people, let's stop playing ourselves small. General Motors, they're having their second annual media upfront for black-owned businesses in a couple of weeks. I got the invite. Unless I see a signed contract from General Motors in the next 2 weeks, I'm not going. Do you know why? Because I went last year. What happened? We've had a bunch of meetings, but what has happened? I think it was Teresa who said earlier, we were talking about statements and you know, what we see in press releases. I told the people at General Motors, I will not applaud you for press releases and announcements. I will applaud you when you make direct deposits. And what we are seeing, Mustafa and DeMario, we are seeing these white-led companies with sprinkles of black faces, largely in community affairs or now DEI, not in P&L positions, who literally are giving black people philanthropy, not investment. And at some point, we've got to have black organizations. We've got to have black civil rights organizations to stop accepting crumbs and actually began to demand and negotiate multi-billion-dollar settlements with major corporations. I don't give a shit about them hosting a damn reception at a civil rights organization's conference. If you withheld 100 to 200 to 300 to 500 million dollars from black people, then there should be an annual investment going back to black people equaling the money that you withheld. That is the only way we're going to change this. At some point, we've got to stop being pimped and demand our money. Mustafa.
You know me. I'm often talking about how our communities continue to get pimped. Sometimes we get pimped by our own organizations, but we definitely get pimped because we allow folks to actually buy us off and then to not live up to what they say they're going to do. And then they say, well, you know, I love you. And then we're like, oh, I guess you do love me. So I come back and I let you pimp me again. And then I let you pimp me again. And I let you pimp me again. And until we change that dynamic, we're going to continue to get pimped. The other part of the conversation is about this 21st century black tax that we continue to see play out, which addresses the black wealth white gap that we have in our country. And if we don't begin to better understand it and call it out. So when you have, folks with the same credit score as somebody else, but yet they're going to ask you to pay a higher percentage, that speaks to the wealth that you could have built during that time period. When we look in our communities, we pay more for food. We pay more for auto insurance. We pay more for our housing insurance. Of course, we pay more for our mortgages. All of this plays into not just how much money you make on your job, that extra $5 or $10 that you get excited about, but generational wealth. Generational wealth actually comes through you owning real estate or through land or a number of other types of things. But if you don't have access to be able to garner the resources that are necessary for you to be able to begin to build that wealth, then you're going to continue to lag behind. So one, we got to stop being pimped, and two, we got to understand the 21st century black tax that is happening inside of our communities.
I'm just not, here's the deal. Damn people's feelings, Teresa. I'm not going to apologize to any civil rights organization. What I'm going to say is, are you demanding real money? I'm not talking about a damn table, some bullshit reception or an awards program. I'm talking about real money. I am tired of black people having the opportunity to have leverage and influence and not using it sitting at the table of power. That's what this boils down to. What are we getting in return? But we've got folks sitting here just happy, oh, they gave us some money. Same thing happened when Comcast got NBC Universal. And Congresswoman Maxine Waters has said this. She said that she was undercut by black civil rights organizations who agreed to a memorandum of understanding with the company, and in the damn MOU, it says this is non-binding. And then what happened? Byron Allen sues them, Comcast and the civil rights groups. Diddy comes out with a letter saying how he was underfunded and didn't have the distribution he should have had. Africa Channel says the exact same thing. All these things happen. So, Comcast, they gonna create 8 minority networks, but will they fully distribute them? The answer was no. Will they give them a fair distribution fee? The answer was no. But, we hyped because, they said they're gonna create 8 networks. And so, who actually benefited from those MOUs? This is why I said to the minority coaches, if y'all fighting for more black and brown coaches, don't you let no civil rights group have a meeting with the NFL commissioner unless y'all leading the meeting. Because can't nobody negotiate for you who ain't got skin in the game. It's the same reason when NABJ went after CNN, I told every civil rights group, don't y'all have y'all own meeting? We leading this. Y'all can stand behind us. Y'all can be with us. But you ain't having your own meetings and we ain't in the room. Y'all, I'm talking, we are literally, Teresa, leaving billions on the table and accepting crumbs.
Roland, this is a message that every single person from 18 to 64 needs to listen to. Like, you guys got me on mute, but I've been wanting to say amen, testify, and moreover, because once you get an understanding, right, about black economics and what we're actually really talking about here, right? I'm a millennial. I have no problem with saying that. I'm a millennial. I know black people, we age gracefully, but like literally I'm a millennial, right? But some of the issues that I've been going through and some of the experiences that I've heard from some of my counterparts is exactly this. Right. I remember NABJ when I believe CNN didn't even want you in the room. Right. And you're a part of that network. Part of the reason is why, because you actually know what the demands are. Right. You know what black economics actually looks like. So they want somebody that is literally going to ask them for the bare minimum. So no longer can we ask larger billion-dollar corporations about our fair share or about our economic worth without actually knowing exactly what we're asking for. So sometimes everybody wants to take the meeting and they're not doing the research. And half the battle is if you're not prepared to go in the room and ask for what you want, then you're just going to be given exactly what they want to give you without knowing that there is so many millions and billions of dollars at the table. And as people are saying, look, I'm fighting for my kids, I'm fighting for my cousins and my nieces and my nephews, then you actually need somebody knowledgeable in the room to understand the deal, understand the contracting process, understand basic accounting and balance sheets, right? I get at my elected officials all the time, and I'm like, listen, we can't be talking about budgets and, just making up numbers about thousands of dollars is going to these programs and organizations when we haven't had a fundamental conversation about the budget. And who knows accounting? If you don't know accounting, then we need to outsource that to make sure that somebody can get the numbers right. So half the battle is knowing the numbers and knowing your audience. And if you don't know your audience, which in this case, is million and billion-dollar corporations who have made billions on the backs of blacks, and black and brown people have not been made whole. And that's why the struggle and this fight continues. And so it takes this continued wisdom. It takes the continued education. It takes, look, sometimes even critical race theory, right? For us to know where our history was and know where the economic shortfall actually came in order for us to progress in towards the future. So that's why I'm excited about this conversation, and I'm excited about learning more. But what we can't do is allow some of these organizations that is like, look, I'm okay with taking crumbs, pennies on the dollar, because that's not what's going to help continue economic growth, right? And so what I want people to understand, and what I've had to learn in almost 7 years of business, is that you have to ask for what you want. But before you go in the room and make your ask, you got to know how much you're losing. And if you know what that cost is, then you know exactly how to make your number to that organization effectively.
I told y'all last year in Tulsa, watch the bullshit. I told y'all last year. Now remember, we were in Tulsa. President Biden spoke, and the same day he spoke, that morning they had this so-called Black Commerce Street event at the convention center. And
talk about it.
And Hill Harper was involved, and Hill wanted me to speak on the panel. And DeMario and others said, no, Roland, don't. That's the city, it's the white folks event. I said, no, I want to speak. And there was a reason I wanted to speak. The problem was we had to be inside the bubble where Biden was speaking by a certain time. And there was no way I could have spoken at the convention center and got over. Truth be told, he ran late. Damn, I could have got there in time. But I wanted to speak at the convention center. Because do you know what I wanted to say, y'all? See, y'all need to understand, this is why y'all don't see me on Fox News. This is why y'all don't see me on MSNBC. Hell, that Black News Channel shut down on a Friday. They signed Charles Blow as a contributor on Monday. They ain't never called me for a contributor's deal, because I think we know why. Let me go ahead and break it down to y'all. Go to my computer. I purposely shot these photos last year for this reason. They had Black Commerce Street. They had this whole day-long program on Black Wall Street presented by J.P. Morgan Chase and Company. Let me just give y'all a little insight to what we experience with J.P. Morgan Chase and Company. First of all, the reason why my business card is with Northern Trust is because I had 2 accounts at Chase. One of them had $250,000 in the account. When I tried to get a business card, Chase turned me down. And I said, whoa, I got $250,000? I said, y'all kiss my ass. Took all my money out of Chase and said, who gonna give me a credit card for my business? Northern Trust said, we got no problem. Boom, got the credit card. Let me tell y'all what happened last year. We were asked to submit a bid for J.P. Morgan Chase was having this Juneteenth program or something like that. So they had like all these black media companies, 18, 20 black media companies competing for not even $200,000. Y'all, that wasn't even real. But let me tell y'all what happened. Y'all gonna laugh at this. So this is the feedback we got from the agency. We presented y'all name, and J.P. Morgan Chase said, well, if his show on YouTube, why would we buy ads from him? Why wouldn't we just buy more on YouTube? I want y'all to listen to the logic of that. J.P. Morgan Chase could have said, wait a minute, we can give the ad money directly to the black-owned media company, or we can give it to the trillion-dollar publicly traded company called Google. Well, hell, we already buying Google. YouTube, we just give it to you. Did y'all hear what I just said? Yeah. Matter of fact, I was asked to contact the CMO, the Chief Marketing Officer of Chase directly. That's interesting, because I've sent Laura Rossi multiple emails. She never bothered to respond. Look, I ain't got a damn thing to lose calling names. Because if you ain't gave me money last year, or last quarter, or last month, or last week, or last night, ain't none today, ain't gonna be none tomorrow, or next week, or next month, or next quarter, or next year. I ain't got a damn thing to lose calling out J.P. Morgan Chase. But they sponsored this. Y'all, go back to the computer. It was called Black Commerce Street. Here were other sponsors, presenting sponsors. Nationwide, J.P. Morgan Chase & Company, Bank of Oklahoma, Combs Enterprises. I'm assuming that's Diddy. I don't know who Combs, that's the only Combs I know, but I'm assuming. Deloitte Digital, Salesforce, Walmart.org. Just so y'all know, my advertising team has been trying to communicate with Walmart for almost a year. We ain't got no headway whatsoever. I ain't done. Here are some other sponsors. Capital Group, National Association of Counties, Category Pirates, Moet Hennessy, Prudential, I don't know what that M is, First Oklahoma Bank, Prosperity Bank, Public Service Company of Oklahoma, Boeing, QT, Vast.Bank. Oh, at the bottom there, the Executive Leadership Council. That's the group of black corporate executives. They were all sponsors of this Black Commerce event. Mind y'all, they were not sponsors of the Justice for Greenwood event. They were the sponsors of the city's so-called Black Commerce event. And there were prominent black people who flew in from all around the country to participate in this conference. Hold up, I ain't done. Let's go back. Presenting sponsor, J.P. Morgan Chase, Nationwide, Bank of Oklahoma, Deloitte Digital, American Express, PepsiCo, Citi, the American College of Financial Services, BlackRock, Axion Opportunity Fund. These are the gold, these are all the sponsors. DeMario, you in Tulsa. You co-founded Justice for Greenwood. In the year, so this is April, anniversary of Tulsa's in June, right?
May 31st, June 1st, yes, sir.
May 31st, June 1st. This was, let me go back just so y'all see. Let me zoom in. Y'all see this? It said at the top. Do y'all see what it says at the top? Let me zoom in more. 1921, 2021, Tulsa Race Riot Massacre Centennial Commission, Economic Empowerment Day, June 1st, 2021. These are the presenting sponsors. DeMario, in almost a year since that was the Economic Empowerment Day, since there was the Black Commerce Street, y'all, I took a photo of the sign. What does it say? 11 a.m., 11:45, fireside chat, importance of black entrepreneurship and shaping communities. 11:55 to 12:40, creativity and capital access, funding opportunities for the new majority. 12:50 to 1:35, the way forward, innovation and partnerships. DeMario, have y'all heard from any of these companies?
Man, I got fire shut up in my bones, as my grandma would say. First of all, no, we haven't heard from these companies. Let me break it down more for the audience. The group, the Tulsa Race Massacre Commission, this was a group that was fronted by some black faces with white, powerful elites who actually created the massacre, making all the money. This group raised $30 million and didn't give 1 cent, 1 penny to the descendants of the survivors. When I asked and had a meeting with this group, as Teresa was talking about being in the room, and they said, what do my survivors want? I said, they need $1 million apiece. They wanted to offer them $3,000 a month. $3,000 a month, because they said they didn't want their families to inherit anything. So that's number one. Number two, JP Morgan Chase owns more than 12 banks that at the time of the massacre stole and kept the money of black people that were looted and destroyed and killed. To this day, they haven't given 1 penny back, yet they're allowed to be an actual an event talking about Tulsa. I'm not finished. Bank of Oklahoma owned multiple banks at the time that stole money from black people at the end of the massacre and have not given 1 penny back. I'm not finished. The same black people that you talked about, Roland, who are out in front, these exceptional Negroes who stopped us from getting our just due, fought with me tooth and nail, day and night, saying, this is not the way. You're asking for too much. You're going too hard. You need to just accept these crumbs that we're having to get. To this very day, you can get an article. You can look at an article that came out on the Undefeated website. The writer was Jesse Washington. Came out in March, where they talked to some of the individuals who gentrified the black community, Greenwood, who stole, who they are sitting on land was stolen from our people during the massacre. These people told the article, the report, that black people should be happy about their investment because now we get to pay rent. And we get to pay rent in the investment that they made. They want us to be happy with the crumbs. They want us to be happy with the small slices, as Mustafa stated, not one to ask for what is actually just due. So to answer your question, Roland, I'm over here, I'm so fired up. Not one thing has changed in my community since that, not only from last year, but over the last 100 years where they've stolen wealth and they continue to steal wealth. And they come in and utilize our pain and suffering of the centennial to whitewash all that they have done, to put their name as a sponsor when it hasn't created one job, it hasn't put a hospital over here, it hasn't created any wealth, it hasn't stopped police violence, it hasn't stopped all the multitudes of things that are destructive to black life in America, but they all got to come here and look good. And Roland, you talked about so many prominent Negroes who came to Tulsa during that time period, made these powerful speeches of what they were going to do. We haven't seen many of those since that time as we continue to fight. That's why I mess with you, Roland, because you keep the receipts. You were here. You know that these people were so angry at us that they tried to have a smear campaign throughout the nation to say that we somehow was doing the bad thing because we were standing up for our 100-year-old survivors and our descendant community who was devastated. I appreciate you, Roland. I appreciate this conversation. I appreciate us telling our people to continue to demand and only accept what is actually owed. Stop with these damn piecemeal, these little bite-sized pieces of what we actually owe. If they won't give us what we owe, don't take little bite-sized pieces of stuff that make them feel good and make them live good, look good. Boy, you got me fired up over here. You got me fired up over here, Roland. You got me fired up over here. These little, and then you talked about DEI, this diversity, equity, inclusion that they put so many black people in. They have zero power. They don't really have many budgets. They have these award shows and they give around these different awards to different organizations and say, oh, this is a diverse company for the year. But this company is not putting real money in the pockets of our people. Man, this is so important. This is so important. Then another thing, they want to talk about financial literacy. They steal billions of dollars from us, but they tell us that if we just learn financial literacy, we can be fine. No, give us the money back. Give us the money back. Then we'll figure out everything else from there.
Let me tell y'all something, everybody who's watching. I don't need no damn financial literacy. Let me tell y'all something right now. I don't. See, I need y'all to understand. We were across the street and had 3 offices and had a center room. And we had 5 monitors behind us. And we had glass tabletops as the desk and these swivel-ass chairs. Built it with y'all donations and personally putting in $350,000. First year, took $391,000 of my speaking fees to pay staff. That's how we survived the first year. All these sponsors, all they love black, oh man, no they didn't. Second year, did well, made a profit, got in the black. Third year, made a profit. Our 4th anniversary, September 4th. Gonna make a profit this year as well. Got experienced people, got a sales team, folks who sold the Golden State Warriors when they sucked and still were able to successfully sell them. Got folks on our team who worked at Dell and Comcast, who sat next to Jeff Shale, who's now the one running Comcast, who's at Ebony, at the Griot, got all the talent in the world. The same companies. Oh, Roland, nice idea. Let's see if you get the shows up. Fine. Rolling with Roland, up. The Black Table, Greg Carr, up. Faraji, up. Jackie Hood Martin, up. Deborah Owens, up. Where are the sponsors? Absent. We took all those meetings. Essence, that controls Target's budget, still waiting. Walmart, still waiting. Group M, $40 billion ad agency, run by a black man, Kurt McDonald. Nothing from them. Can't say we don't have quality. Can't say we don't have the numbers. In fact, you know what JP Morgan Chase told us? Well, the ad agency said, well, if you get your own platform as opposed to being on YouTube, then they'll fund it, because that's a lie. Because if we did get our own platform, Black Star Network, but they would tell us, hey, your numbers are too small, so therefore, we're not gonna fund you. That's the game they play. What I'm trying to explain to y'all is this here. The time has come for us to demand people who so-called speak for us that they have got to do better and ask for more. If you're gonna sit at the table of companies with billions, you better sit in a room and ask for billions. That's how it has to happen. Wells Fargo, y'all should be picking that phone up and calling us at Black-owned media and saying, hey, what can we sponsor? But I'm gonna sit here and tell you what you're giving back to the black consumers. Tomorrow, we're gonna talk about how black homeowners in Detroit were improperly taxed. What caused them to lose homes, ain't nobody getting their homes back or their money back. Y'all, we lay this out to you for a reason. We explain this stuff to you for a reason. Because we need you to stand with us when we're targeting these people. So here's what I need, and this is what I'm gonna do. Because again, I told y'all, and you know what? One of the biggest problems we have, DeMario called them these exceptional Negroes. Y'all, my advertising people have been on calls where the white folks on the call ain't got no problem with my commentaries, but it's Negroes on the call who say, now Roland kind of controversial. And my people like, Negro, will you shut up? Some of the scariest folk we've been talking to were the black people on the phone. Shut up.
Yep.
So I told y'all they ain't sitting here raining money on us like they do BET. I showed y'all all them companies that took our ads during the BET Awards. Because see, they ain't got no problem with us laughing and giggling.
Right.
They ain't trying to actually have us to be informed.
Right.
So here's what I need right here. Because first of all, I told y'all on YouTube, I don't know why we ain't hit 1,000 likes by now. So I keep telling y'all why I got to keep asking for this. It makes no sense to me. But so y'all need to go hit that like button. That's first of all. So here's what I'm gonna do right now, and I just need y'all to understand why we're doing this here. So I need our fan base to contribute $5,000. But I told y'all, I always tell y'all what we're gonna do with the money. I am going to hire, this is why I need the 5,000. It's really going to cost me 10. I'm going to ask you for 5. I need the $5,000 because I'm going to hire a freelance writer, producer, to call every single one. Go to my computer here. Yeah, I told y'all, all these companies, I'm going to hire a freelance writer, and they going to call every single one of these companies. Nationwide, J.P. Morgan Chase & Company, Bank of Oklahoma, Combs Enterprises, Deloitte Digital, Salesforce, Walmart.org, Capital Group, NACO, Category Pirates, Moet Hennessy, Prudential, First Oklahoma Bank, Public Service Company of Oklahoma, Prosperity Bank, QT, Boeing, Vast Bank, Executive Leadership Council, PepsiCo, Citi, BlackRock, the American College of Financial Services, Acheon Opportunity, American Express. I'm gonna hire a writer to call every single one of these companies, and I want to know what is their investment in Black Tulsa. And this is April 19th, and I'm gonna give them till the anniversary, the 1-year anniversary of the 100th anniversary, and we're gonna put every single one of them on record as to what they have done in the 1 year since sponsoring this so-called Black Economic Empowerment Day. Every single one of them. All these other people who call themselves black media, let's see if they will do the same. Folks, if y'all give, let's make this happen, because see, this, what does that Ida B. Wells poster say? I done told y'all before, what did Ida B. Wells Barnett say? The sister who was going after these people who came to lynching. What is her quote? There's a reason this portrait is on this wall. There's a reason it's sitting right here. It says, the way to right wrongs is to turn the light of truth upon them. All these folks who've been playing games, y'all about to get the light, and with light means heat. And so, if y'all want to help us, I need our fan base. You contribute $5,000. I'm hiring a freelance writer. This is all they gonna work on for the next month, and then we are going to do a report on the anniversary of the 101st anniversary of the Tulsa race riots, and we want to know what every single one of those sponsors have done to help black folks in Tulsa, and what has been their black plan, and we're going to ask them, and if they give us no comment, we're going to tell you no comment. Folks, if you want to help us to make this possible, send a check or money order to P.O. Box 57196, Washington, D.C., 20037 dash, pull up the, come on, pull it up, let's go, pull it up, dash 0196. This is the mailing address. Come on, pull it up, let's go. Thank you. P.O. Box 57196, Washington, D.C., 20037-0196. Cash App is $RM Unfiltered. PayPal is R Martin Unfiltered. Venmo is RM Unfiltered. Zelle is Roland@RolandSMartin.com, Roland@RolandMartinUnfiltered.com. We are going to, and then when I hire the person, I'm going to tell you when it's done. I'm going to give them the next month to do this, because y'all, I'm tired of people playing us. I'm tired of people pimping us. I'm tired of them saying we're going to give to a black organization $10,000 or $15,000 or $20,000 when they literally are taking millions and billions out of our community. And that same writer is going to be calling Wells Fargo, because I got some questions for them too. I told y'all, you cannot be scared if you black-owned media. I don't sit here and do these bullshit conversations about gossip and who did what, who done what. I don't care. This is about where's our money. This is about us demanding respect for our community, and I'm not playing games with these people anymore. And if you are black and you work at these companies and you're standing in the way of progress, I'm gonna start naming you too. Because enough is enough. JP Morgan Chase. Enough is enough. And I'm gonna start naming other companies. Because y'all, if they ain't giving us anything today, what makes you think they're gonna give something tomorrow? We'll be right back.
I'm Deborah Owens, America's Wealth Coach. And on the next Get Wealthy, you'll meet Jandy Turner, who took her love of sports, expanded her network, and created a thriving business.
I settled on developing a golf event planning business, which in and of itself has been very viable for me. One of the things that I've learned from producing hundreds, if not thousands, of golf tournaments is that business gets done on the golf course.
All on The Next Get Wealthy, only on Black Star Network.
When did you know that this is what I wanted to do?
I think right after high school, because in high school I was in all the plays. Well, I was always funny, but I didn't know nobody would pay me for it, you know? And then I saw Eddie Murphy. This was like '84 when I saw Eddie Murphy. Eddie Murphy was the hottest thing in the whole wide world, not just comedy, but anywhere. He saved Saturday Night Live. If he hadn't started that show would be gone. He had done 48 Hours, Trading Places, his first Beverly Hills Cop, could wear the hell out of a red leather suit, and he wasn't but 23 years old. He was rich enough to pee cream, and he got all that telling jokes. I said, shit, I've been funny my whole life. I didn't know people give you money like that, so I went and got some Red Fox albums. I went down to my mama's basement where I was living anyway, and I stood in that mirror and played them albums and them jokes until I could tell them like they was mad.
Wow.
And that started me doing jokes, and then I went and did comedy in the street. I was standing on State Street, tell jokes and pass my hat, and white folks would come up and just hand me money, and I liked it.
You read about it in history, you know, you talk about it, you see it on our side, you know, of the United States, but to actually come here and see where this story of slavery started, and connecting the dots, it's just a wow factor for me right now.
It's going to be dark inside. You might not see too much, but you're going to feel everything.
Just imagine to see prisons in the yard in the United States.
A lot of us, if we're real honest, what is required in 2019 going into 2020 is simply for us to be reprogrammed from what they taught us needs to be removed and extracted.
It just doesn't make sense that the richest continent in the world should be inhabited by the poorest people of the world.
Part of that is by design. Self-hatred has been a very tragic part of our whole existence. And I'm not blaming anybody for it, but if you look at most characterizations of being of African descent in the world, it's with these kind of tags.
I always say, you're gonna do a lot of shopping. They go, oh, I don't think so. And then they come, so they've brought limited reserves, and then they spend all their time running to the ATM because they see all these clothes they want and fabric they want. It's overwhelming. I've been here for 8 years, and I'm still taking pictures out of my car because it's a feast for the eyes on any given day.
The kind of opportunities you have in Africa, you don't have those in America. The kind of money that you can make in Africa, very few of you would have that opportunity to do that in America. Cordy, who was working for the Congress in the United States, she has started a waste management company. She's the #1 here in Ghana now. She looked at
dollar signs and trash.
There it is.
What used to be jeans.
Used to be jeans.
Is now a huge rush.
In Ghana alone, we have a 2 million unit deficit in housing.
2 million.
2 million.
7 of the 10 fastest growing economies right now are African nations. Why in the world would we not be trying to figure out how to connect? Because the Lebanese are, the Chinese are, everybody else is doing it. We will be crazy to do it. And it's for people who look like us. We will be crazy to do it, crazy to do it, crazy to do it.
Hi, I'm Eric Nolan.
I'm Shantae Moore.
Hi, my name is Latoya Luckett, and you're watching Roland Martin Unfiltered.
All right, folks, a couple of black women created a company to help African Americans navigate this new COVID world. They join us live right now. Joining us from Oakland, California is, first of all, from Fairfield, California, Cynthia Coward, Teresa Lakes. She's in Las Vegas. Glad to have both of them here. So first and foremost, tell us exactly what is this company and how are you helping people navigate this COVID economy? And so first of all, define this COVID economy.
Yes, absolutely. So COVID economy is one that, you know, everything changed. We had the pandemic, we had businesses, roughly 40% of Black-owned businesses going under because of the pandemic, and not knowing how to survive business, not knowing how to pivot their operations to really adapt into this new, you know, normal, we'll call it. And so we set out as a business, started COVID-19 Business Services to help those mom and pop, those small business owners learn to look at their business plan, look at their strategy, and then also learn how we can adapt and move into this, you know, COVID atmosphere and really reach people with their businesses so that they can stay open, and that way they can still operate and do not have to close their doors during this time.
What successes have y'all had thus far?
So far, we have been very successful. We have helped over 200 small businesses either open or keep their doors open through this new normal.
Gotcha. And I take those all around the country?
Yes, mainly in the California area is where we focused our efforts, and even within Las Vegas. And so we have expanded and just reached any business that sought our services and helped them with and looking at what they're doing and helping them to succeed. Looking at, you know, what's weak in their operation and incorporating our experience, our knowledge to help them thrive.
Let's see here. Questions from the panel. Let's start with Teresa Lundy first. I'm sorry, so we'll get Teresa in a second. Mustafa, go ahead.
Yeah, Teresa and Cynthia, thank you so much for what you're doing to help our businesses. I guess my initial question would be, you know, what were 1 or 2 of the recurring themes that you saw with businesses that were trying to keep their doors open?
Okay.
Yeah. Cynthia, go ahead. I'll say one of the major challenges for business were the funding. And, you know, we talk a lot about businesses, small business owners not receiving the funding for their business. And so what we did was help those small businesses create business plans, ones that would show financial projections and really help them showcase how their business is thriving or how they could make it thrive, how their marketing strategy would play into you know, really obtaining the business and pivoting in this marketplace. So that was a common theme where businesses really had to go back to the basics with their business plan and redefine themselves.
All right, DeMario.
I had a very similar question related to the PPP funds and were you guys able to help many of your businesses access those dollars as they were trying to survive during the pandemic? Because I know that was a big problem for so many Black businesses not having access to the billions of dollars that was available.
Yes, we were both able to assist many businesses that required funding. We were able to kind of guide them through like the EIDL loans, the PPP loans. There's even a fund out there right now called the California Dreaming that we are participating in and helping businesses discover these funding options.
All right. Teresa, your question for our guest.
Yeah, well, one, thank you, ladies, so much. Because, listen, as a business owner myself, I know very well what it took to stay in business. So I had about 6 months of trial and error during the pandemic. And so PPP and EIDL, because I'm in the government space, I actually knew where to go. So I wish you guys were around and probably would have streamlined the process a little faster. So if one of my questions is for those who, because I believe the federal government EIDL is saying there's going to be an extension. Are you guys doing any consultations? Just maybe I'm not sure what the process is. I need to go to this website, COVID-19businessservices.com. But for somebody that's in Philadelphia or in New Jersey, could we just, hey, submit our questions and complete a consultation? Walk us through this process so we know how to extend and get some benefits from our government.
Yes. So the main philosophy in our business, COVID-19 Business Services, is building the relationship. So with every client that we have worked with, we are personally reaching out to make sure that they understand the process, because it becomes complicated for the average user on what are the guidelines, what's the extension, what's the additional funding that's available. So we take pride in just building those relationships, finding out exactly where our clients are, and then seeing how we can help and assist through the process. What we found out too is a lot of business owners do not have the time. They lack just the basic time to set aside, fill out the application, fill out the paperwork. So we are able to take that on for our clients, given they, give us their information and help them through the application process. And so COVID-19's Business Services, I would say, is unique in that factor that we are there from beginning to end. We build that relationship, that confidence, and provide professionalism in our service.
All right then. So somebody's out there who they want answers. How do they reach you to be able to find assistance?
Absolutely. So our website, COVID-19businessservices.com, is the best way to reach us. You can log on, set a one-on-one consultation. We can also be reached via telephone, 1-866-421-9274. You can reach Cynthia or myself. And on all social media networks, we're on Twitter, we're on Instagram, Facebook, and LinkedIn. Again, COVID-19 Business Services. You'll see us located there. You'll see our pictures. You'll see navigating the new normal, and that's really the best way to contact us.
All right then. Well, we certainly appreciate what y'all are doing. Certainly, our goal is always to be able to help our folks when it comes to business, and those things are critically important. We appreciate it. Thanks a lot.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
All right, thanks a bunch. Final comments. Let's go from each one of our panelists on any particular subject. Could be when we're talking about the whole money piece. So I'll start with you, Mustafa.
You just need to be very focused and understand that, there's literally trillions of dollars out there. We should be focused on the billions to begin with, and then we can move to the trillions. Make sure that we're actually getting our piece of the pie, and to make sure that we aren't being denied, the opportunities that wealth development can bring to our communities and the transformation. So I hope that we will continue to do work, continue to educate ourselves, but then to really get engaged and hold people accountable.
All right, Teresa, you're next.
Well, I'm excited about this conversation. This is definitely a replay option for anyone on this panel and the ones actually watching, because we are in this together. We understand that we have a purpose, and the fine line between what we're worth and what we deserve is not that thin. So I hope that we are sharing, we are liking, we are encouraging, but also spending those dollars where it's worth. Because unlike, other channels who claim that they say they are Black owned and oriented, we know that we can count on Roland Martin Unfiltered and his Black Star Network and his phenomenal production team that ensures every day that we are getting the information deserved. So we have to support our own, and we can do it right here, right now.
DeMario, close us out.
Yeah, I definitely want to echo Teresa to say support this brother, support Roland Martin Unfiltered. It's such a resource for our community. Number two, respect yourself and demand that others respect you. I would say one of those organizations, the only one on that group, First Oklahoma Bank, has been an organization I've worked with for many years. They've supported our law firm, supported Justice for Greenwood, and supported many of our projects. So support people that support you, respect yourself and demand respect, and support Roland Martin.
All right, DeMario, I appreciate that. Folks, let me thank all three of you who've been on our panel today. Thank you so very much. Always a pleasure. To all the folks who are watching, we're about to have a conversation that deals with COVID, its impact. Look, we already heard the mask mandate has been a federal judge, a Trump-appointed federal judge, who frankly was grossly unqualified. She has gotten rid of the mask mandate on airplanes and public transportation. The Biden administration announced today that they're going to be fighting that in court. We're still impacted. Prominent DJ just died, 55 years old, of COVID. So it is still with us. And so we're about to have an hour conversation talking about this. We were going to stop. We were going to break, but we're not going to do that. We're going to just keep our stream going. We're just going to transition from one conversation to the other. And so I'm looking forward to that conversation. But I specifically, and I know some of you, I saw some of y'all comments, man, calm down. You're going to have a stroke. Y'all, my health is good. But I'm passionate about this because I need you to understand, folks, how we are being impacted by folks not spending money with us, how we are being frozen out of this system. It is happening repeatedly. It is happening all around the country, and it continues to happen over and over and over again. And so we have got to be willing to make demands when it comes to these resources. And unfortunately, that is not happening on a consistent basis. So these companies have got to stand up. These companies have got to be able to invest because they love us spending, but they do not love returning the capital to us. And so that's why we're going to continue this fight. Please continue to give support our Bring the Funk fan club. With every dollar you give goes to support this show. Please, again, our goal is to raise $5,000 tonight to hire that freelance writer. I'm going to be emailing people tonight because we're going to go after all of these companies and demand answers. P.O. Box 57196, Washington, D.C. 20037-0196. Cash App is $RM Unfiltered. PayPal is R Martin Unfiltered. Venmo.com is /RM Unfiltered. Zelle is Roland@RolandSMartin.com. Roland@RolandMartinUnfiltered.com. And so I certainly appreciate all of you who have been watching our show, who have been participating in this conversation. And so we now are going to transition to this conversation about COVID. This has been one of the ways that we have been greatly impacted all across this country, folks, over the last 2 years. Not just, we were talking about just with those business owners, we were talking about how we were impacted there, but so many of our loved ones have been impacted, folks have been impacted when it comes to a loss of resources, a loss of life. It has been a very, if you will, difficult couple of years for many of us. And so the Ad Council, along with the COVID Collaborative, they have partnered for this event, which is called Keeping Our Children Safe and Healthy During This Pandemic and Beyond. And so a panel has been assembled to talk about these various issues. And we can't act as if COVID no longer exists. There are some people who somehow don't necessarily know what is going on. What they have to understand is that, look, we are not out of the wilderness. We're seeing continuing efforts. We're seeing, even talking to our experts, we have been seeing more strains and variants. Remember, we had folks here who actually predicted this. We had HBCU professors who talked about this as well. And so, let's Go right into it. All of our friends for our special broadcast, are y'all ready? Are we ready? All right, folks, let's go. How we doing? Are we ready? So as you see, folks, let's go. How we doing? Are we ready? So as you see, folks, let's go. How we doing? Are we ready? So as you see, folks, let's go. How we doing? Are we ready? So as you see, folks, let's go. How we doing? For this special conversation, the focus, of course, you ready? So as you see, folks, let's go. How we doing? For this special conversation, the focus, of course, you ready? So as you see, folks, let's go. How we doing? For this special conversation. This is a partnership between folks with COVID-19. We've got some great people lined up to share some wonderful information with you because, again, Kathy Hughes. Who are watching Roland Martin Unfiltered or still with us, please share with your friends and others that this broadcast is live because we want to impact as many people as possible. I'm excited that we have Chief of Pediatrics at Beaufort, Jasper Hampton Comprehensive Health Services, joining us this evening. We're also joined by real parents to share their experiences navigating COVID and their children. Those folks include Joshua Dubois and Michelle Dubois, CEO and President of Values Partnership. They're going to be joined by other parents and friends as well. And so we want to get right to the conversation. We don't want to hold you long. We want to make it pop for you. And so let's welcome Dr. Jamie Singleton and Joshua and Michelle Dubois. Folks, how you doing?
Hello, Roland. How are you?
Hey, brother Roland. Good to see you.
I'm doing good. It's always good to be with a fellow alpha man. So if you're not an alpha, I'm sorry you couldn't get in.
I'm sorry.
All right, so let's start, Dr. Singleton. I want to start with you first. I opened up talking about how all of a sudden, boom, mask mandate. I flew today from Nashville. I spoke at Fisk University last night. People were in the airplanes, and we've seen the videos. People all excited, taking their mask off. Oh, don't have to wear it. I'm sitting here going, COVID's still real, y'all.
Yeah. I'm doing the same thing too, Roland. I really am. It's scary in a sense that we are still living in this pandemic and we're still learning to deal with this virus. And yes, we're 2 years into it, but this virus is mutating and changing, and the variants, and they're coming so quickly. And we've got the spikes and the ebbs and the flows and the number of cases throughout the United States. And so, especially in close quarters, I think that we should still be doing our masks as much as we can. I know it's hard when you're in a public place and you see a lot of people take off their mask and you're like one of five who still have their mask on, but let
me stop you right there, because when you have these people, you got Dr. Oz, who's running for Senate in Pennsylvania, who's saying masks don't work. Okay, there's somebody who's listening and they're saying that do masks work? Everything that I've seen, doctors I've talked to for the last 2 years said, absolutely, masks stop the transmission, especially the N95 mask, of particles coming out of your mouth.
They do. They really do. And they work better if you're the sick person that has on the mask. For instance, if I have on a mask and I walk into a cloud of smoke, well, the smoke surrounds me. But if the smoke is coming out of my mouth and I have on the mask, then I'm not going to transmit as much of that smoke. And that's the idea behind it. The particles, if I have on the mask and I'm sick and I go achoo or I'm just talking, it's less likely going to spread to others around me. In just the opposite fashion, if everybody else is sick and I just happen to have on a mask, I'm still sitting in this mist of particles and illness, hoping that my mask works enough. But masks do work. Long story short, they do work. You should use them.
And the reason I find this to be quite fascinating is that the number of people who have talked about not having the flu, not having allergies, all of these things that we've been used to, because we literally changed how we were living in terms of washing hands, using sanitizer, wearing masks. So for the folks who act as if, oh, these things are just driving us crazy. No, it's literally has changed our health conditions.
It really has. I don't see half as many sick children as I used to. I almost forgot how to treat a cold because no one got sick, especially 2020 and 2021, no one got sick. And when they went back to school, they had masks, or most of them had on masks, or there was some.
The reason I'm laughing, I got hit with allergies last week, and I was like, damn, where'd that come from? I mean, y'all was like, I was like,
forgot what it was like to have a cold. Yes.
I was like, where's my Zyrtec? I literally forgot what to do. I'm looking for my Vaccinase, and I'm going, because I literally haven't had to use it since 2019.
Correct. And that's where we are. We know that mask works just by looking at the other illnesses that we don't see a lot of. Common cold, strep, flu. I honestly, and I know some of my partners have, but I honestly have not treated a case of flu this year. I haven't. And that's just because the children are not as sick. People are wearing their masks where they were wearing their masks. And it was stopping the transmission of not just COVID, but of other illnesses too.
Joshua, Michelle, just talk about, again, the awareness, the importance of these various campaigns. Y'all have been very much involved with Ad Council and other organizations in terms of just constantly trying to keep people aware of providing information and knowledge, because information has changed. Because initially it was like, don't get masks. People got to forget because we had a massive shortage. They were trying to save them for hospitals and healthcare workers. And then when that changed, so it's a constantly flow or change of information.
Yeah, no, there is, but thankfully we have some trusted resources that are out there. Roland, you have been one, and we appreciate you and the platform that you've created, an independent platform to get real information out there, not just what you heard from such and such in the barbershop, although the barbershop can be a source of information, but you are empowering people with fact-based information. We also have a massive campaign it's gone on for a couple years now with the Ad Council, an organization called the COVID Collaborative. It's called It's Up to You. And this is them giving people information that they can use to make their own decisions, right? It's been focused on the African-American community, the Hispanic community, the faith community, rural communities, and more. And really powerful content so that people can make their own decisions. We've been in charge of the faith-based part of that in partnership with the Ad Council and an amazing leader over there named Sherry Thompson. But there's so many resources on the It's Up to You site. A big part of this is physical health, but also mental health too, Roland. So we've been speaking a lot about how the pandemic has impacted people and their mental health, especially kids too. I actually think the Ad Council has a PSA that's connected to this issue I want to tee up called Howie and the Howl. And so we're going to take a look at this because it's connected to some of these issues.
Michelle?
Hey, boss. Okay.
I said I'm fine. Me the bed, see you in the morning. With the first deed, Superman, but it was wasn't all these, and we lost these. In my head, in my head, in my head. When you were underlay in my head.
Hey, son.
Hey, Bob.
You know you can talk to me.
Yeah.
Powerful, right? And as Joshua said, yeah, we've been so proud to work with the Ad Council. We know that mental health is really important focus for parents as well during this time, right? We're proud to have worked with the Ad Council and on a number of campaigns, including some for children and teens. And we would love for you all to visit sounditouttogether.org and seizetheawkward.org as well.
Yeah, one of these campaigns, Sound It Out, was focused on, if you don't have the words to say, then write a song, write some rap lyrics, freestyle, something that expresses what you're going through. And so it's a really powerful campaign. Again, sounditouttogether.org and seizetheawkward.org.
Doc, wanted to bring you back in here because one of the things that we also are seeing right now, we're seeing people still talk about vaccines now, triple boosted, having the fourth booster. Let's talk about effectiveness. I've had family members hit me up and ask me about this, and well, Pfizer and Moderna, and then does it wear off, and how long does it last? Is it 6 months? Is it a year? Is it 2 years? And so just give the latest on that to help folks who also might have some questions in that area.
All right, so the short answer to the vaccine question is yes, it's effective. It works. It's actually working better to prevent infection than having the infection itself. So even if you have had the COVID virus disease, you still want to get the vaccine because it works better to prevent. It's actually been working against the variants. It works. That's the short answer. So the structure and the timing of it changes. And I like to remind people that we are battling a disease and learning about it at the same time, unfortunately. And so remember, the science is going to change because as we learn new things, as you know better, you do better. So as we learn new things, we will change things up. And so the Moderna and the Pfizer vaccine are a 2-shot series. And then they've added boosters. Now, if you're immunocompromised, it's a 3-shot series. And then there's a first booster for that. And that's a little different. So if you have issues with your immune system, you're maybe in cancer treatment, you should get 3 shots. Everybody else will get 2 shots. And right now, we've only got vaccine from ages 5 and up.
So perfect example. So I got my 2 shots. I got COVID in December. And I probably got it when I was in Hawaii on vacation because I landed on a Monday morning, flew to Atlanta that evening. I didn't have my first symptom of a scratchy throat. That Wednesday night, we had an event with Coca-Cola around the Celebration Bowl about 9:15, and then got back to the Airbnb, had chills for the next 2 days. I tested negative and tested positive until that Saturday, and then came home and quarantined. So, but I got the, what the hell y'all call it? Mononuclear, I just call it the nuclear potion. So I got that. So I couldn't get a booster for 90 days. So the question is, do I need to have a third shot?
The third booster, yes.
Okay.
Right now, there's two boosters. There's the third booster that everybody should get ages 12 and up. And then there's the fourth booster that's only being recommended now for those who are ages 50 and up, or if you are immunocompromised. So the third booster.
So you saying I got to get a third and a fourth?
Right, well.
Dang, not all these shots.
Give me my shots, man. I want all my shots. I can give me 4th, 5th, 6th, 7th, 8th, whatever you want to give me.
The fourth booster, I'm saying talk to your physician about it. If you are right now, most of the country, we're at a low in the numbers of new cases, which is great, which is awesome. I know some states are going up. So if you are in a place where it's going up now, this might be a great time for you to get your 4th dose. However, if you're in a place where you are kind of low and things are good and the numbers are okay, then you may want to wait, because we know that all boosters have been shown to increase the number of circulating antibodies. So what does that mean? That means the things that fight infection, as soon as I get my booster, in about 2 weeks, they're up and they're running and they're ready to fight infection in my body. We want them there, but we also know why we need the boosters is as the time goes on, they start to slowly decrease. Yes, it's still effective, and the rate of hospitalizations and death did not change, even though the antibodies were decreasing, which was a good thing. That meant that the vaccine was stopping hospitalizations and it was stopping death, even though the circulating antibodies was decreasing. So 4th dose, I'd say that's a personal thing. You should talk with your doctor, but definitely get your 3rd dose.
A little bit earlier, Joshua mentioned this, and I want you to speak about this, and I want to ask him and Michelle about how they've had to deal with this with their kids, and that is, he mentioned the mental aspect.
Yeah.
My wife and I, we had 2 of my twin nieces living with us last couple of years, and now back in Texas. And the reality is they were dealing with the depression of COVID. The Surgeon General has talked about the mental impact of COVID on young children and teenagers. The markers in life that people were used to, prom, graduation, junior prom, all the other different events, sporting events, homecoming games, all of these things. So all of these life markers, you got, 2 or 3 years of students who frankly don't have those experiences. And a lot of folks have been handling it in different ways, and it's been very tough on this generation. What must parents and aunts and uncles and others, what must we be doing to be sympathetic to what they have been going through, just to say, hey, toughen it up, it happens?
Yeah.
That doesn't cut it.
Yeah, no, it's a great question, Michelle. Love your thoughts too. I think, a couple things that we've tried to do, and our kids absolutely hit that Zoom fatigue wall. I mean, you could see it on their faces. It was really having a toll on them, and they're now 6, 4, and 2. So to see young kids that are just, kind of overwhelmed by the pandemic and by Zoom was tough. Did a few things, man. Oxygen therapy. We went outside a whole lot more. We played outside. Everybody's got an outside, and everybody may not have access to any particular thing, but we all have an outside role. And I know you golf, and other people may play basketball or go in the woods and hike or whatever the case may be. And so we really doubled down on getting the kids outside and spending time stretching their bodies and stretching their minds through outside play. So that was a big thing. What else?
Yeah, absolutely. Outside play was huge for us. We also did 2 other things. One, we gave them space to talk about the things that they missed and the things that made them sad. And we didn't necessarily have an attitude of, toughen up and just, kind of get through this. It was a new awakening for us. We always have thought of ourselves as parents that tried to create space for our kids to be healthy and balanced, but we were hyper aware of how healthy and balanced they needed to be in the space that they needed to have those conversations and to simply share, and to know that a 6-year-old and a 4-year-old are not going to share in ways that are going to be, on the level that an adult can share their feelings. I think for us, it also reflected back on us to make sure that we were healthy, that we were, as parents, making sure that we were still connecting, taking breaks, and being honest with ourselves about what we were feeling, the fatigue that we were having, so we could show up best for them. And then the last thing was we gave them space to take breaks. And so it was really good. Their school has been phenomenal about making sure that they had very, rigorous curriculum while they were still at home, but they also created space to say, you don't have to give us an explanation. If your child needs a break today from Zoom, you just email us and say, we're taking a break today, right? And so that was really helpful too, to take the pressure off of parents. Yeah,
one more thing I would just throw in, there's an ethic in the church, praise God anyhow, even when things are tough. For us, it was celebrate anyhow. So if my younger sister wasn't able to go to her graduation from Spelman, but we celebrated her on Zoom no matter what. Even if it's a couple of years later, if you missed something 2 years ago, it is not too late to celebrate people. And so we just encourage, you to make space for celebration, for acknowledgement, for those moments that were missed.
Doc, again, speak to that from a practitioner standpoint. What have you seen? Have you had parents come in and talk about how they're having to deal with their children? And I had somebody in our YouTube chat room who said, depression, SMH. No, seriously, I'm telling you, we literally witnessed it in our nieces. It was real. Being home every single day. A lot of people forget that that's a part of the culture of also growing up is having friends and seeing them at school and also being away from parents. And all of a sudden, you literally are around your parents 24/7. If you did not love your wife or your husband, COVID exposed all of that. And if you really didn't enjoy your kids, COVID also exposed that. This thing has been real, Doc.
It has been. I see it daily. Two things I saw: an increase in weight and an increase in depression. I had kids who shot up in their weight, and I had so many kids who are just, and it wasn't one specific thing. Some of them didn't want to go back to school. Some of them wanted to go back to school. Some of them missed their friends. Some of them didn't miss their friends. Whatever it was, they all had some level of depression and anxiety. I had some of them not afraid to go outside because it's COVID and I could die. And so all of that was and still is an issue, and it's real. And for the Dubois, I thank you guys because you guys are doing the hard work. And the hard work is just acknowledging that this is something that we need to deal with, and then dealing and doing something about it, whatever it is, trying something different. It's not so much that the parents are coming to me, it's the children are telling me themselves.
Wow.
And their mom and dad may or may not even know.
That's so true.
And so that's what's happening. They're especially as they get older, teenage years, you already want to isolate anyway. And so I'm in my teenage years, I'm isolated. And so I isolate more. And it was the children that and we screen it's a national thing now that you screen for depression. We've been screening for depression for a little bit. So we screen all our teenagers 12 and up for depression, and they're all coming back positive, and we talk about it. And like I said, it runs the gamut of why. The only thing that I've heard this before, and I want to put this here, it has not been from masking. They didn't care about the masking. I've heard people say, oh, they're depressed because they have to wear masks. No one has ever told me it has been from masking. It's been from, I can't go to school, or I have to go to school now and I don't want to go back. I miss my friends. I don't want to see them because I've been bullied. And so I've gotten away from that bully. And that's the kind of stuff that I've seen.
Our kids love their masks. They're looking for their masks.
Yeah, they remind me.
It doesn't bother them.
Yeah. The mask has not at all been an issue for us. Especially, when they go outside, they get their mask break, right? And so the mask that's not been the issue.
Yeah.
Well, we want to remind folks that if you're looking for resources when it comes to communicating with your children, or again, nieces and nephews, cousins, go to sounditouttogether.org. Also, seizetheawkward.org. Again, there are resources there for children and teens to share their thoughts when it comes to dealing with COVID. Joshua and Michelle, I certainly appreciate y'all being with us. We've got some other guests here as well, but we also want to show a few more of the PSAs the Ad Council have put together with regards to this important discussion. So check it out.
Scene 1 of 3, take 1.
Taking my vaccine and staying safe. That's what you want me to believe. Of course. They're saying that the vaccine is 99% effective, right?
Where are you going with this?
What about the one dude?
I want you to get the vaccine because I care. I want you to be safe. If you was to die, man, that would literally kill me, man.
If it made you feel that way, bro, I would probably do.
Love you too.
All right, let's try this.
COVID has been a really long fight, and it's been especially tough on kids.
It's been a rough transition for all of us.
Right now, as a father, I want to give the best tools to protect my kids.
So what can we do to get back to that sense of normalcy?
Every day, parents ask me if their child 5 and above should get vaccinated. The answer is absolutely yes.
My own sons, who are 6 and 8 years old, had their COVID vaccine.
It's an added layer of protection to keep kids from getting any type of severe illness or complications from a COVID infection. A lot of parents are also wondering if the vaccines are safe.
Yes, it's safe and effective for children.
Definitely safer than a COVID infection.
Children get a smaller dosage than adults do.
So if you have questions or concerns about the vaccine, that's okay.
We're here to help.
We have the tools we need to protect kids and help them stay healthy and all get through this together.
You know, Doc, that video with the two brothers, that really was an important one because I know several individuals who had to bury their best friends and they could not get them to take the vaccine. They literally could not convince them. They were like, no, absolutely not. And they went from having that conversation to planning their funeral. And so that thing is real. Earlier, I asked you specifically about the effectiveness of the vaccines, but do want you to weigh in specifically as the vaccines relate to children.
As they relate to children, they're showing to be effective too. Just like the children get 12 and up get the adult dosage, the children 5 to 11 get the pediatric dosage, which is 2 different vaccines, but they have all been proven to be safe. They've all been proven to be effective. And the booster for the 5 to 11 is still in clinical trials, but it is showing to be just as effective as the boosters for the adults have been. So it is definitely much, much, much safer than getting the disease itself. And again, it works better from protecting you from COVID against future COVID infection by getting the vaccine. It's definitely something I recommend all day, every day.
All right, then. Of course, Joshua as well as Michelle are still with us. We want to welcome some additional guests here, Kelly and Melissa Smith, also Richard Fortjor. Richard, is that correct? Fortjor? And Skylar Whitehurst. I just want to make sure I pronounce that correct.
Skylar Fortjor. Right. And rolling two more good Alpha brothers, by the way. I needed you to know that.
Okay. See, all I'm saying is all 16. All right, then. Glad to have all of y'all here. Kelly, Melissa, share your thoughts as it relates to decision making when it came to protecting your children.
Sure, good to be with you. So we have 2 kids, a 5-year-old and a 3-year-old. And I guess to put it in context, we would maybe tell you a little bit about our mindset about vaccinations pre-pandemic. So pre-pandemic, we are pro-vaccination. We always have been. But we've always felt like we needed to do things in a discretionary manner that made us feel comfortable. So for instance, when our kids were, newborns or, year 1 of life, according to the CDC, there's like lots of vaccinations they get in that first year. And in some doctor's visits, it can be like multiple vaccinations. Well, we all thought that those vaccinations were important, but we intentionally spaced them out for our kids because that made us feel better. So instead of getting like 4 vaccinations in one doctor's visit, we'd get 2 on that visit and then come back a month later and get the other 2. So that, we did things like that just made us feel more comfortable. So then when the pandemic happened, we kind of had a 2-pronged approach to things. As it pertained to vaccinating ourselves, Kelly and I were very much like, get me first in line. We were very adamant about getting it as soon as we could. When it came to our 5-year-old, and she was newly 5 when the vaccine was approved for her, we took a little bit of a pause to make sure we were making the right decision for her. Her risk profile was different than ours, right? Children generally have been shown to be more resilient against COVID. So it was like, okay, what are the pros and cons here for her? right? And once we educated ourselves about it, we had conversations with our pediatrician, we decided that it was the right move to go ahead and get her vaccinated. And once we made that decision, we did not delay.
Yeah, and I think we really put it in the broader context of what does this mean for her, right? Like her ability to engage with her friends in ways that she might not have been as comfortable, or we may not have been as comfortable with before the vaccine. We both have 92-year-old grandparents and their great-grandparents. Actually, my grandmother's in Nashville. And we really wanted them to be able to have those kind of connections and have those moments, while, a lot of those things are fleeting. So that's really the context that we set when we said it was the right time for our 5-year-old to get the vaccine.
Skylar and Richard, did you have any apprehensions, concerns when you had to make your decisions?
Well, our children are younger. They're only 3 and 1. So, both fortunately and unfortunately, we kind of have the gift of continuing to see how things panned out. But a lot like Kelly and Melissa, we did not hesitate to get vaccinated ourselves. We both work in pretty high transmissible industries. I'm a hairstylist and Richard is a dentist. So we had to hit the ground running before the world opened up, back being one-on-one, face-to-face with patients and clients. So that's kind of helped us shape our approach to the way we manage our kids and protecting them, while also just having not too much anxiety about it and remaining open to the ever-changing landscape of COVID.
Yeah, I mean, our kids, our 3-year-old is in a program where they tested, almost every day, it felt like. I mean, it's almost definitely every week. One thing that we've noticed is that, kids are really resilient, right? Our 3-year-old doesn't care much about what's going on in the world. She wants to play. When she sees people, she wants to run up to them. So, for us, the decision when the time comes is kind of a no-brainer. We have to kind of let kids be kids. And if there's something out there that's going to allow that, we're 100% for it.
That is, Joshua and Michelle, a lot of parents have had to make these decisions in so many different ways. But they also had to factor in the fact that they had children who were around grandparents, and dealing with that as well. And so, for the both of you, did you sort of have, were you factoring some of that in as well in terms of, okay, what is the impact of our kids being around other family members? And also, you don't control the decisions of other parents. And so were y'all also being proactive and saying, we need to know what decision y'all made, which will determine whether or not our kids can even be around your kids?
That's exactly right. Yeah, the grandparent piece was a big part of it for us. Michelle's mom lived with us part-time and still is here a lot. They're around my parents a fair amount, and even my grandparents or their great-grandparents, it enabled them to connect there. That said, we kind of pumped the brakes a little bit at first and really, had some open questions. Is this the right thing? And what does the data say? I think the thing that did it for us was we know a lot of parents, a lot of kids. We did not know anyone, we know the rates of side effects are low overall. And we didn't know anyone that was impacted by significant side effects in terms of the vaccine, but we did know kids who were significantly impacted by COVID, and certainly parents and adults who were as well. And so just kind of weighing the two, it's not a decision in a vacuum. COVID is real and it's out there. That doesn't mean we have to be, live in fear, but we compared outcomes of vaccination versus outcomes of COVID-19 if our kids, if our 6-year-old were to contract the virus, and decided that it was the right move for him to get vaccinated.
Absolutely. Like Joshua said, my mom was living here. She had just turned 75, and we also had a newborn at the top of COVID.
Yeah.
And so we were very mindful of how do we keep everybody safe. And so as Melissa and Kelly outlined, like our context for this was we were clear about we wanted to vaccinate ourselves as soon as a vaccine was available. Just given how deadly the initial COVID-19 was, right? We were watching CNN every day, MSNBC, and watching the toll, right?
I was watching Roland Martin.
We were watching Roland too. Absolutely.
Very smart. That's right. You were getting better information from Black doctors, from Black scientists. And that was the key.
Hey, Roland too. We had you streaming too. And so we were just watching the numbers though, right? We were watching and every number had a story, right? Every number was a person, and we actually knew some people that were affected by COVID in very significant ways. We knew the long hauler stuff that people were really, really, really challenged with, some mental challenges that came a part of the long haulers. And so for us, it was very clear. The calculus for us, the cost benefit analysis of becoming vaccinated was very clear for us as adults, as parents. We were going to get vaccinated as soon as a vaccine was available. Like Joshua said, for our 5-year-old, it was a much tougher decision. And so lots of factors went into it. And surprisingly, one thing that we didn't consider that would be a part of our factor or our decision was his opinion, right? Like, I mean, it just didn't cross our minds, but his school had a vaccine program that they operated while we were out of town, and he wasn't able to participate, but a lot of his friends did. And he saw that a lot more of them were able to interact, their parents were a little more lenient with masks and things like that. And so he was very much lobbying for us to consider the vaccine. And so, of course, we talked to him, we talked to his pediatrician, and we decided to allow him to become vaccinated. And so,
he asked for it. He asked for it
because
his friends had it.
Because his friends had it. And of course, that's not the only reason, but that was a factor. And it was a factor that we, at the top of our decision-making process, would have never thought would have been one of the factors, which was him really lobbying for becoming vaccinated because he wanted to be able to re-engage with his friends in more close contact.
Doc, I want to bring you in here because I'm sure you had to deal with some really worried parents on this issue here. What were those conversations like?
Really, it ran the gamut. Some of them were just side effects. I don't know what the long term is going to be. And of course, we had not much to say about the main thing about that is just look at vaccines in general. You really don't hear anybody said, I got cancer from my vaccine that I got when I was 2 months old. That's just not how vaccines work, and with the COVID vaccine, the only new part of the engineering, and I'll put new in quotation marks because that part of the engineering has been around for many times. The messenger RNA is used in cancer treatments. It just hasn't been really used in vaccines like that. But that's the only new part of it. The other parts of the vaccine, the salts, the lipids, the carbohydrates, sugar, it's all part of other vaccines. And so that was that answer as to side effects is like, it's unlikely, nothing's 100%, but it's very unlikely given what we know to be true about the other vaccines and what we know to be true about messenger RNA. Again, it's been used in other areas of medicine for decades now. Some of it was conspiracy theories, and that's kind of hard to refute. You just kind of go with the theory, but my underlying thing to parents is to make sure you vet your sources. I've had parents come in and tell me things, and then they said, oh, I got this from this blog I read online, or I got this from my cousin down the street. And I look at them and I say, that's great, but does your cousin know anything about medicine? So just when you're making these decisions, and they are hard, and we understand that, again, we're fighting a virus and learning about it at the same time. So we understand their apprehension about things are changing, but that's a good thing. Science should change. We can't stay the same. But just make sure when you're getting your information, be sure to vet your sources, to make sure they're reliable, to make sure that they're going to give you good information. Because there's a lot of misinformation floating around about COVID and the vaccine and what it can and can't do. And children do get sick. Children are hospitalized. Yes, they're not hospitalized at the rate that older adults are, but they're hospitalized. They can get very sick illnesses, MSC, multi-inflammatory, systemic in children. I think I said it correctly, but it's just basically, they get inflammation in all parts of all of their body organs. And so that puts them in the hospital, as you can imagine. Of course, there's death, but also they are getting long-term COVID side effects too. They are dealing with fatigue 3, 4, 5 months out of having recovered from the virus. So all of these things are still possible. And we just haven't seen that with the vaccine. We've seen it with the disease, but we have not seen it with the vaccine. So long story short, get the vaccine. It's proven to be safe and effective. It works in children, it works in adults, and it is keeping everyone out of the hospital, and it is preventing death. And that is our main goal, is to prevent morbidity and mortality. So please, please, please get your vaccines.
Hey, Roland, the doc mentioned misinformation, and I know you know about this, but there's a powerful piece that the Ad Council and Joy Collective put together to respond to a specific piece of misinformation. There's a lot of conversation about Tuskegee experiment. They're not going to do Tuskegee on me and so forth. And without folks really knowing that history, they put together this amazing series of videos that actually talks to descendants of the men who were involved in that experiment and unpacking what it really was and what conclusions really should be. And long story short, a lot of those folks, I think all of the ones who participated in this series, are strong advocates of vaccinations. If you just go on YouTube and search Ad Council Tuskegee, they and the Joy Collective did an amazing job on that. So just wanted to drop that piece of information as well.
Well, I sit here and look at some of these people here. Like I've got a bunch of these crazies mad because today, when I was flying, I still wore my goggles and I was double masked. And people like, oh my God, it's about freedom. Like, that's cute. But I know a whole bunch of people, Doc, who were yelling freedom, who are in the grave. And I keep telling folk, ain't no flip side to death. Now, you can talk about going see Jesus and God in heaven, but some people who are evil are going to be in hell. That's your flip side. But the reality is, when you're gone, you're gone. So play with this all if you want to, but there is a hardcore reality that people are still experiencing. And again, as I said, this prominent DJ, African-American, who just died, 55 years old, and he battled COVID for the last 4 months. He's gone.
Yeah.
Wow. Yeah.
Yeah. One side effect I will say that's out there is our daughter fought us kicking and screaming to get that shot. And she wanted the shot. She rolled up saying, I want the shot. And then 3 seconds before she needed to get it, she said, but she got it. And then she was like, oh, that was nothing.
We're pediatricians. We do that every day. No worries.
And I just remember the website is getvaccineanswers.org. That's where you can find all of the resources related to the It's Up to You campaign and Tuskegee campaign I just mentioned, and more. Again, it's getvaccineanswers.org. Kelly and Melissa, we had that exact same experience. We said that August wanted it, but then we got over there. We had to bribe, cajole, promise. Yep. I didn't headlock them, but I wanted to. It was just bad. But afterwards, it was fine. It was, it was over.
Yeah. She said, let me be brave. And we just paused and said, all right, let's let you be brave. And then it worked.
Yeah, and can I tell you about our experience with that? It was just so interesting. Our son, did the same thing, wants to go get the shot, gets there, completely falls apart. And I think it was a testament to how amazing the nurses were. They were so patient, right? Like, there were other people behind us, but it wasn't like, when I was a kid and you needed to get a shot and you went in there and you really showed out and they're like restraining you and holding you down. It was very empowering, I think, for him, that even though it took us an extra 20 minutes or 30 minutes to get that shot, that he was able to do it on his own terms again, right? So anyway, I know everybody doesn't have that kind of time, but it was just the most amazing thing. And it's funny, the vaccine actually looks like much worse than what it really is. It is the most painless shot. And he saw me get mine first, and I think that was it. That he was like, that was a long needle, and that looks like that's gonna hurt. And then once he had the first one, he was like, actually, that was surprisingly painless, right? And so
that's the power of a mama. I just got to give a shout out, because me, I was like, man, just put it in there. And she worked with the nurse. They took their time, and he didn't feel like it was forced on him, and so forth.
So then second
be
one
like
was
her.
easier.
Don't be
the
like.
second one was easier because of that, right? So he doesn't have this fear of like needles and like trauma associated with needles, and toys are always helpful. So Dad was great about promising to take him to Target to pick out what
I will ask each of you this, and that is, give me an example of the toughest conversations you've had to have with friends, fraternity brothers, sorority sisters, loved ones, church members on this very issue, not just when it comes to social distancing, when it comes to wearing masks, when it comes to washing hands, sanitizing, but also vaccines. How did those conversations go down? And did you have any people who you talked to and they just simply said no?
I'll jump in on that one. I actually had this conversation a few weeks ago with a fraternity brother, part of the greatest fraternity on earth, but said one of the dumbest things I've ever heard. Usually not coming from alphas, but whatever. He was telling me about, he was unvaccinated at the time, and had a lot of reasons for why he didn't want to do it, citing Tuskegee and all that other stuff that we all hear from our brothers and sisters. He also did not want to vaccinate his kids. So I'm a little more sensitive about that, right? Kids are, a whole different ballgame. But one of the things that we talked about was, hey man, these kids have essentially grown up in this COVID world, unlike most of us, right? They're not coming at this with the same anxiety we have from past histories of misuse of medicine against people of color. And I think it's important for us not to pass those anxieties on to our kids. I think when we're approaching these decisions, we're thinking for them like it's us. And the reality is, as I said earlier, kids are very resilient. And one of those resiliencies is that they have grown up with this situation. Our kids are still small enough. We just had our first non-COVID birthday for our kid. Every birthday has been COVID. Every birthday has been on Zoom. So I just want to kind of encourage us, those of us who are parents, to take a step back before we make decisions for our kids. Just remember that, they don't know some of the same histories that we do, and let's not take those chances, those experiences away from them.
Yeah. Rick, it's such a great point. In terms of tough conversations and moments that I had, one was really tragic. Our last big event for our company right before COVID hit was a set visit for a movie in Atlanta. We brought a bunch of faith leaders down there, and then came back. That was in February. Came back in March. We had learned that one of the pastors that was with us passed away of COVID. So it was just the gut punch early on that this thing is real and it's serious. And as a result, we haven't really pulled punches, right? If we got family members that are not trying to get vaccinated, unfortunately, our response was, well, you can't come with us to to a grandmother's house, or you can't come over our house, and so forth. And so, I think it was that the reality of that mortality early on that kind of shifted things for us.
Absolutely. I think our family knew early on that we were very, very, very rigid about social distancing, and especially, in February or March of 2020, before other folks were necessarily there. And so we kind of ripped the Band-Aid off early. And so people kind of knew they may be a little more challenging to interact with. But I think as the world started to open back up and vaccines were becoming available, I think it was really tough for some family members to know that the line was still there, right? And now the line is, you know, before it was like very little to no interaction, and now the line is we'll interact, but you have to be vaccinated. And so I think there were some tough conversations, but I think people kind of knew that they were coming.
They were not tough conversations for us. It was very simple. You can't come around.
Yeah. We
were not about to sit here. And in fact, I think one of my sisters was hesitant, which I didn't understand that, considering all the damn health issues she got. But we were having a family get together, and we said, you can't come around, period.
Yeah.
Unless you get vaccinated. Oh, she got vaccinated, but we were dead serious. There was no debate. There was no conversation. There was no cajoling. It was real simple. If you think you're going to come around the family, then you need to be vaccinated. In fact, I lost 2 aunts last year. And it wasn't the COVID. One was 81, one was 80. My mom's 2 older sisters, and they died within about 4 months of each other. But what's very interesting is that when we had the repast for one of my aunts, my mom said, hey, these tables are not spaced properly. So literally, that was the family had the repast after the funeral. She said, no. Our family, she's like, me and my kids and my husband, we gonna have a separate repast. Y'all ain't got enough social distancing. And so mama wasn't playing, because, you know, daddy is 75 next week. She's 75 in November. They were slicing, dicing everybody. They wouldn't even know they were more hardcore than me.
Yeah.
No, that's so true, Roland. We had experience with a wedding like that too, where it was like, y'all can do what you want to, but we're going to distance. We're going to have our masks on. You know, it doesn't mean we're going to stop our lives, but it's definitely something we're going to take into account wherever we go.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Dr. Singleton, I want to ask you this, because it's been very interesting, the number of doctors who don't want to get vaccinated. And y'all have been fighting in the medical profession, folks who've been resistant. You've had hospitals who've had to actually fire doctors and workers who did not want to get vaccinated, who were talking against masks as well. What has that been like, dealing with your own colleagues who are supposedly the experts we turn to in situations like this?
Well, for me at my organization, we've actually been doing very well. When the organization decided to go and mandate vaccines for everybody, I think it was somewhere around 95% of our employees decided to get a vaccine. We did have some medical exempts, which was somewhat understandable, but okay. But really, it's been, for us here, it's been okay. Now, I do have and know of people who just decided to leave. And we did have a couple of people who just decided that that's not what they wanted. And, you know, it's a decision that you have to make for yourself. But really, we shouldn't let fear stop us. And we've got the science, we've got the evidence, and we know what this disease can do. We've seen, we all know somebody who's lost somebody to this disease. We all do. We all know somebody who ended up in the hospital, who was on a ventilator, or know somebody that was ended up in the hospital on a ventilator. We know someone who is dealing with long COVID. We know people who have been really impacted from this disease. Now, the question is, do we know people who have been really impacted from the vaccine in a negative way? And I don't know of anybody who's been impacted from the vaccine in a negative way. Even the kids who've come in, and, you know, everybody can kind of get the systemic symptoms right after vaccination: soreness, headache, short of breath. I mean, not short of breath, fever. I've seen that a handful of children actually experience it. Most of the parents say, oh, they did fine after their first shot, and they come get the second shot and they do fine too. So it really is something that we're building up. We as people have built up in ourselves to be fearful of, which we don't have the evidence to have any fear for it. With that, I just say, use your evidence, make your best decisions, but the vaccine works. and it's safe and it's effective, and everyone should get it if we want to be able to understand and survive in this going forward. COVID's not going anywhere. We're not going to there's never going to be a time that we get rid of COVID, at least not in the next couple of decades.
Yeah.
Really? Next couple of decades?
Wow.
Okay.
Well, if you think about it, I mean, they finally eradicated smallpox, but how long did that take?
Right.
And this virus has shown that it can mutate, and it's a living organism. It wants to live and grow just like we do. And so it's going to do everything it can to live and grow and multiply. And so it's not going anywhere. We will always be dealing with COVID. The question is, how will we be dealing with COVID? And that's going to be something that's going to be up to us.
Got about 3 minutes left. I want to do final comments. So Skylar and Richard, you're first.
Wow. You know, I think about what life is going to look like now that we're in kind of what feels like a light at the end of the tunnel with all of this. And I just hope that things look different for our children, you know, in the next year, 2 years. There's a lot of information out there, and I would challenge everyone to kind of lean into the people that they trust, right? You chose a pediatrician that was the best from what the choices you had and resources you had. Lean into them, really have a conversation with them as if you're talking parent to parent about what they would do. And if you can kind of quiet that noise, you might have a little more clarity about how to proceed.
Yeah, and I'll say to, you know, to especially to Black and brown people, you know, we tend to not trust our healthcare providers. A lot of that is due to historical issues, but I have a real simple answer. I know a lot of Black and brown healthcare providers. So switch to somebody that you can trust. It's really as simple as that. And those of us who have voices, you know, Roland, you're doing a great job. Joshua and Michelle, you're doing a great job. Go straight to the source that you trust. There's no reason to have to be with somebody that you don't feel comfortable with that's going to impact your health negatively.
I absolutely agree. Kelly and Melissa?
Well, I'm actually representing the Smith delegation.
All right.
But I would say that, you know, I completely agree that we've all had a lot of people impacted. I had a fraternity brother that passed last year due to the virus. And what getting vaccinated has done and what it's provided us as a family is more comfort levels, right? Comfort levels to engage on that, you know, family trip. Comfort levels to, you know, go to a birthday party and, you know, maybe, you know, not wear a mask outside, right? Or, you know, whatever that like thing is that really connects you back into society. I think that's been like so important from a mental health standpoint, from a just social connection. And that's really where I think that vaccination is the foundation of creating that space to be able to do that. So thank you very much for this forum to really share that message.
Joshua and Michelle.
Absolutely. Well, thank you again, Roland, for having us. It's been a really fun conversation and informative as well. I would say, I think it's important for us to not, I feel like as, you know, as things are rolling back in terms of masks and the focused attention on vaccines, I think it's important for us to acknowledge what we have been through for the last 2 years. I think it's important to not look past that and just say, I'm so excited I can go to that barbecue, I can do this now. But I think it's important for us to say, man, we've really been through something, right? And it's fundamentally shaped who we are as individuals and shaped how we interact globally, right? And so I think it's important for us to take a moment to pause and acknowledge and have a level of gratitude that we are now on, not completely on the other side, but we are now over the hump, at least in what was a global pandemic. And that's important for us to all acknowledge for ourselves and for our children, and to take a moment to say thank goodness that we have vaccines, and thank goodness that we had some folks that were making smart decisions to encourage mask wearing, that we are where we are now. It's not by happenstance. And so anyway, I think I really like the notion of taking a moment to honor what we've been through in the last 2 years, our resiliency, and also the level of resources that have come available is really important. And I think just moving forward, I think one thing that Rick said I would really encourage parents is to reduce the level of fear that we are sharing with our children as we make decisions around vaccines and other things related to this pandemic. Joshua?
I think you're exactly right. And I would say, get the facts, get the information. There are a wealth of resources out there. Tune in to our brother Roland. Go to getvaccineanswers.org. I cannot tell you how powerful and clear the information there is. You got the cdc.gov. You also have getvaccineanswers.org. And I use that. When I get a video clip, I share it with our family. I send it on a text chain. I engage with the content so that if I'm in the barbershop and somebody's saying something crazy, I can say, well, no, here are the facts, or here's a video about the Tuskegee experiment, and so forth. And so, definitely a key takeaway for me is make sure you're visiting getvaccineanswers.org and empowering people with information to make their own decisions.
Dr. Singleton, your final comments.
Again, I want to say thank you for having me too. And I'm just going to reiterate what everyone just said plainly and simply, and just say, get the vaccine. It works, it's safe, and it's effective. And ask for help, get the resources that you need. Your pediatricians, your providers, your nurse practitioners, whoever you see, we want to answer your questions. We really do. We get excited when we get questions, because we're like, oh, they're engaged and they want to know the truth. And so please ask us, set up an appointment, go see them, and let them answer your questions. We're not here to mislead you. We just want what you want, which is the best for your children. That's why we went into this profession, because we want what you want, the best for all children. So please, if you have questions, come to us. Please do your research if you want to. Vaccineanswers.org and the cdc.gov are great resources. Use them as much as you can. And, get vaccinated. Get vaccinated. Not just the COVID vaccine, all vaccines. Get vaccinated.
Amen.
That's the pediatric plug right there. Get vaccinated.
So it's really interesting listening to some people. I guess some conservative was upset with my post earlier today when I said that I was double masked. And they're like, oh, you're wearing a cloth mask. Actually, the top was not a cloth mask. It's actually from space mask. Underneath is the N95. It's actually covering my face. And so don't understand, this ain't my first rodeo. But somebody made this comment. They said, this is ridiculous. This is not about you. Actually, it is. See, if I'm wearing a mask, if I'm social distancing, it is about me and my wife and my parents and my brother and my 3 sisters and my 13 nieces and church members and fraternity members and other people, people who work for me on my show. So actually, it is about me. And I think that's what you're dealing with. You're dealing with a group of people out here, a lot of people on political ideology, some people who might be black and who are white, people go through all this sort of stuff and they're complaining what's not about them. But here is the reality, and we've said this. Too many of us know people who are dead because of COVID. In the first 6 months of COVID, we had more than 50 black pastors die. Bishop Harry Jackson, who preached the Easter sermon in the Oval Office with Trump in 2020, was dead 6 months later. Joshua, you were on a panel with him at Bishop T.D. Jakes' church, along with Paula White, April Ryan moderated that, and Father Michael Flager. He's gone. He beat cancer. COVID killed him. So I want people to understand, you can play games all you want to, that's fine. But you better factor in if there are others who are around you. And we know black families where mom and dad both died, leaving their children orphans, forcing their families to now have to raise their children because they're no longer here. And so when you make a decision not to wear a mask, when you make a decision not to social distance, when you make a decision not to get vaccinated, do understand that it's not about just you. And if you're single and don't work around people, okay, whatever, that's fine. We all have to make the decision. But I would hate, as D.L. Hughley said, when I talked to him, when he got COVID, he said it hit him. I literally could have been the person responsible for the death of my wife and my children. He said, I could not have lived with myself if they had contracted COVID from me and didn't survive. That's what changed his view on the vaccine and changed his view on taking precautions. So folks, our goal is to give you information. If you don't say you want to trust Black doctors, we have them on every single day. We've done more than 100 segments on COVID on Roland Martin Unfiltered. We've had Black ER doctors, Black specialists, infectious disease specialists. We had Black scientists. We have run the gamut, and we're going to continue, because if we talk about Black Lives Matter, it matters whether it's in the streets, and it matters if it's at home, if it's at work, and we're dealing with COVID. We appreciate everybody who participated tonight. Don't forget, there were several websites that we gave throughout the course of this conversation. Quickly, I want to give those. That is sounditouttogether.org, seizetheawkward.org, and also getvaccineanswers.org. That's information that you can get. So we certainly appreciate everybody who participated in this, all of our panelists, also those involved in the production. And we want to certainly thank those who made this possible. And that is, of course, the Ad Council, the COVID Collaborative, as well as the Values Partnerships. Folks, I appreciate it. Thanks a bunch.
Sir, we appreciate
You guys.
All right, bye-bye now.
Enjoy your nights.
Have a good one.